Recording in progress.
Hey everybody, welcome to the ZoomOSC Test Kitchen. It's Jeff Whitgren, your host on Thursdays for ZoomOSC and Fridays, same time, 3 o'clock Eastern, for the Zoom Test Kitchen as well. So I'm glad to have a few of you here as these numbers will grow. I know we've got some viewers on the live stream as well as we stream this community get together on our Facebook group, Zoom Test Kitchen and ZoomOSC Test Kitchen, and also our YouTube channel as well. So if you can view only, it's a great place to do it. If you want to look back at the archives, that's the place to find them. And anyways, it's a good time. Love to have any of you join us at any time on Thursdays and Fridays where we learn together. And today is a workshop as advertised. Andy and team are all out with busy schedules and calendars, and so we don't have anybody from Liminal with us today, but I thought, you know, I'll brave it up and run this kitchen anyways and make it a workshop. Just let's create some challenges for ourselves and let's plow through this. So that's what we're going to do. Guys, I've got Robert and Bill in the test kitchen as well. If you want to turn on your cameras and say hello, and we'll go from there. Robert's even got a buddy with him. Hello, hello.
Yeah, we're with Max together today. Hi, everyone.
All right, very good. We're glad to have you. Well, good stuff. Robert, you dropped a note and said that you used OSC and production here just recently and had a good experience, and we'll never go back to the old ways. So why don't we kick things off and share a little bit about that?
It was amazing. Let me tell you something, Jeff. And your comment that I'll never go back to a mouse, that was just so spot on.
For sure. Yeah.
It's quite amazing. But you know, when I think about it, every time I've joined the Zoom Test Kitchen, I've sort of understood about half of what's been said, remembered about half of that. And then now when we've tried it, all the things are starting to make sense. Max and I have been going back to the recordings, looking to see what we didn't remember and just trying to make it work. But basically, it was just a very simple setup with spotlighting. and Max has set it up using a Stream Deck. And we actually came across a couple of questions. So we do have some really fundamental questions that we would like to sort of go through, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's go. What do you got?
So the first question is the Zoom OSC Zoom client has these SD quality video previews in gallery view. Can I force 1080p in ZoomOSC, or do you have guys workaround with a second Zoom client?
Say that one more time. With the ZoomOSC client, you have
ZoomOSC has a Zoom client with SD video feeds. Can I force HD somehow?
Yeah. Oh, it can be HD. I think if you happen to have the Zoom client, ZoomOSC client on now, or if you want to get it joined to this meeting, you should be able to see, in fact, that it is high def. While I say that, I'm gonna pull up my stats and look at that myself. Let's take a peek here, and let me pin my video and see if we get, so I'm on the ZoomOSC client right now. I've got, let me share this screen. And so you can see the client, you can see myself, and you can see my stats are up here, and that this machine, in fact, even on the ZoomOSC client, is receiving the 1080 that I'm sending out. And so it certainly has that the capability of high definition if the meeting itself allows high definition. And then my question is am I answering your question? Did I understand it correctly?
I can see Zoom ISO on your screen right now.
Oh, did I share the wrong screen? Sorry. There we go.
You're receiving full HD. Okay, I'll check it on my workstation.
Yeah. Now keep in mind, there's several reasons why it's at HD. Part of it is the subscription, right? The license for Zoom. This is an account that's capable of 1080. and then here I'm going to remove the pen and go back to gallery view, and you'll see that it immediately drops down to 360, right? And so there was a really good reason why I pinned it, and that is somebody in this meeting, even though my camera and my ingest into my Zoom host client, which is on my PC, not my Mac, which is what I'm sharing right now, it's fully capable of sending 1080 from the camera all the way into Zoom. And but it won't send 1080 unless there's somebody in this meeting actually requiring it. And so that's all about size of view. So if I let me get some more people in here. If I pin my video, now I've made it larger, therefore I've created the demand. So this client is now saying, hey, Zoom, I'd like to see this at maximum resolution. Zoom says, well, you certainly qualify. The meeting or the subscription can provide that. Let me go ask that sender, which happens to be me. Let me go ask that sender to start sending me 1080, and I'll send that to you. That's kind of what's going on in the background.
It answers my question. Thank you. The second one is with BitFocus Companion. There are two comments with common ZoomOSC actions, and actually it's what's the difference between list and update?
So list gives you back a list of all the attendees in the order in which they arrived in the meeting, and that's what you'll always get in return from list. And then update is basically telling ZoomOSC, hey, go take a fresh inventory of everybody who's in the meeting. And so if you feel like, there have been more people that joined and they're not in your list, you
Okay.
can force an update. I mean, it does a pretty good job of keeping up to date these days, but but if you need to force an update, you can do just that, and it will rescan the attendees and pull them back into its database, if you will, in memory, and and then you can actually output that rescan to a file if you desire, which we can get into as well. That command, bear with me. That's the big difference between me and the other guys. But that's a save. Yeah, I think it's called save. I've got it on my Stream Deck as save, and with that, then you've got that. That is. Let me back up there. Oops. Yeah, it's this from the actions there, the general local application actions is the one that is called save. And it's in the same where you can get the list, update or save, you can save it to a file as well.
So if I do not see someone on a list, what option do you recommend for me to use? List or update?
If you don't see what in the list?
As someone on my list.
Someone,
Yes.
update.
Okay.
Yeah, you would do it. You would do an update.
And one more.
Can I just give you the context, because we decided to go down the route that you showed, Jeff, where we pulled up a list, and then we knew who the main speakers were going to be, so we put them on the top bar, this top row, and then we programmed it in such a way that we could just select who we want to spotlight next, not by clicking on, but just selecting and then spotlighting. Selecting and then next. So and that's where we realized when we got into a Q&A session, we didn't have certain people on the list, and we had to start looking for them
by mouth.
Yeah, with a mouse is right. That or you for the very first time you're scrambling and you use the fuzzy search on the top of the participants list, right? You can type part of their name and get it filtered down, and then spotlight them as well. And so to always know the backup plan, right? But because it's not, and I'll say, update at times isn't instantaneous. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get the inventory and then to have it update the buttons on your Stream Deck. I mean, it can take several seconds sometimes to make all that happen. So you may in fact have to, I always keep my participants list visible, for that kind of instant backup system for sure. How big, how many attendees were in the meeting that you were managing?
With active camera, 6, and then there were like 20 viewers.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a closed meeting.
Yeah. And then what size Stream Deck did you have?
XL.
An XL. Okay. So you had 32 buttons. So something that could fit, like everybody in the meeting could fit on a single page even of a Stream Deck. And so that's where it becomes, valuable to have, maybe one page display everybody maybe by target ID, another page display everybody by gallery position, right? And they can all be populated at the same time, but you may need to it may be easier to find a speaker by changing pages to see, because you can see them on screen, for instance, or maybe you don't, but maybe you can find them easier on a different type of layout. Or if you know, the other one is if you know the names of your speakers, let's say the 6 speakers out of the 20 in attendance, then you can build a target list, a literal text file that has those 6 names in it, and you can load that text file. So instead of it doing an update and pulling everybody into memory, which is just like the text file, but from it goes in memory first, instead of having everybody, you could take a full inventory with an update of the meeting, then you could save it out to a text file, then you can edit that text file, remove everybody who's just an attendee, who you'll never have to spotlight, leaving just the speakers, save that, and then you can do a load command, and it will load that edited list into memory. So it really only cares about those 6. And then those buttons will be the only ones that are that are lit up, if you will. And that's target ID, number 1, number 2, number 3. I think it started index 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And those 5 buttons or 6 buttons will be the only ones that are populated based on what's in that list. Now, keep in mind, that's a name match. So the name on their screen has to match the exact spelling that you have in the text file. Once it has that match, then they show up on that button that's been defined of target ID 1, target ID 2, and so forth. And that just keeps them together. It doesn't matter at that point if they get disconnected and come back and end up at the bottom of the gallery, right? Because they came in last, they'll still be in exactly the same position of your Stream Deck if you're using that method as well. So it's just kind of understanding the benefits, the pros and cons of target IDs versus gallery position, list, and so forth. So that help?
So yes, it did. And like I said, we talk about these things and then we go back to the recordings just to go through it again to really, when we're sitting there with the
absolutely
programming. You have one more question?
Yeah, that's like one possible bug report, but I want to really recreate it one more time and then let you guys know.
Yeah, well, we'll do it today. So if you're gonna stay on, we can do it for this meeting. So right now we have.
But there's one big problem with recreating that one, because we were in a meeting with interpretations.
Yeah.
And I activated the chat in ZoomOSC Zoom client, and I believe it wanted to show me more than it was capable of, and it bugged out, crashed.
Yeah.
And I needed to restart the ZoomOSC.
Okay, so what I caught out of what you just said, it sounds like were you hosting this meeting with the ZoomOSC client?
The ZoomOSC client was a co-host.
Oh, so it was a separate computer, and
Yes.
and you made it co-host. Okay, so so crashing's not the end of the world. It's never fun, but it's at the same time, it's not the end of the world. I will say I work fairly actively to keep my ZoomOSC client in gallery view as often as I can keep it there. Like shares and spotlights will bounce it here and there, but try to keep it in gallery view. Therefore, especially on the page of my Stream Deck that's based on gallery position, I can always reference that, because there's an absolute direct correlation to a page that is trying to load based on gallery position and so forth. So if for instance, if I go here and share from my ZoomOSC laptop, my gallery view, you can see that it's a 4 up, right? 2 across, 2 down. If I go over to Stream Deck, you'll see that's a perfect match, isn't it? Is Jeff and then Robert, and then we've got not Jeremy, is it Randy? And and so you can see that the order though is identical. And if I don't have the resolution. I don't think I have the resolution to make that much different because it's only 4 cameras on right now. But let's see. There we go. All right, so now we have a 4 up. And if we go over here, it's turned into a 4 up, right? And so that's based on gallery position. So my point being is there's a direct correlation to what your gallery view truly is visually versus a page on a Stream Deck of how it will represent it and dynamically update itself. It hasn't updated quite yet, but it will. And so with that, it can help a lot. And if you have a highly populated meeting and you have a Stream Deck XL, for instance, with what is it? It's 8x4, right? Buttons. Then in your case, it sounded like you were doing selection. So if you're using Companion, you lose the left column for paging. You probably lost at least one right column because you were doing selections and then executions. So you had selections in the middle, and then the right column probably had spotlight and pen and stuff like that. So what do you want to do with the selections? So you ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buttons that could be people. You lose the left column, you lose the right column, but then you have the 6 buttons in the middle. If you have a highly populated meeting, you're probably going to have 7 across. Like if you have 49, right, which is like its maximum computer, qualifying. If the computer can handle 49 and the resolution and so forth can handle 49 images, you're going to have 7 by 7. But your Stream Deck is only set up to show 6 across. My practice would be shrink my window. So I force my gallery to be a 6 across view. So now I match. It's not whether it's going to work or not. It's always going to work, but it just works for me better when I have visual cohesiveness between what I'm seeing on screen and what I can see on my Stream Deck as well. And then even if you had a highly populated meeting and your shrinkage of the gallery window, to make it fit basically the scale of your Stream Deck, that might cause more paging in the gallery, page 1, page 2, page 3. The concept is the Stream Deck's never really meant to capture all your attendees. It's meant to capture 1 page at a time. So as you go to page 2, your Stream Deck page will update to those in those gallery positions in page 2, those in gallery position page 3. And so it just keeps up with it page after page as well. So that's why I think the alignment concept works really well for me anyways. It's really a personal preference, but it works well for me.
One of the other things that we did in terms of getting the gallery view on the screen all the time on the ISO screen monitor was Max programmed the spotlight key with a layer that said, put me into gallery view. So that was after a certain amount of delay. So once we got all the spotlights, the next step was put me back into gallery view. So we forced
to actually switch to gallery view.
Yeah, it forced it back to gallery view every time. So that was clever as well. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and are you running ZoomOSC on a Mac or a PC?
On a PC.
On a PC. Single monitor or dual monitor?
Well,
dual monitor.
Yep.
And so so I'm on my ZoomOSC machine. I'm going to spotlight myself, and I'll spotlight you guys also. Then that does that. I'm not sharing the screen right now, but what you're seeing on the stream and inside Zoom is this side by side, and you lose that gallery view. It does, unfortunately, it doesn't do the multi-spotlights on the second monitor, the second Zoom monitor screen. Wished it did, because then you could in fact take you know, and keep the gallery here and multi-spotlight on the second monitor and be good to go. So I just wanted to show that to everybody's like, what did that exactly mean? And it means just that you do in fact lose that that gallery view. Now, yeah, because you can, once you have, so I will see if this comes across well. Let me share this. This is my ZoomOSC desktop again. I lost the gallery. I'm in a double spotlight, and it's double spotlighted, but I'm going to go back to gallery. Does it, the question is does it change the double spotlight? Now, right now, quite honestly, a lot of you, even on the stream, will say, looks like it did. You're actually seeing the shared. You're seeing my shared desktop of the gallery. If I stop the share, you knowing that I'm in gallery view, now you'll see it's still double spotlighted to the world, right? And that works well. And the reason we know, you know, who's spotlighted or spotlit is this. I don't know if I can really show this off very well, but this tiny little icon next to my name. And the tiny little icon next to, well, it's not showing everybody else's name on this screen. I must have turned that off on this one. But on my primary PC, if I share this screen instead, you'll see that my name, you can see the double spotlight, but you can see my name has this little spotlight. I guess it's supposed to be a spotlight or a pen type icon, and yours does as well. That's in the spotlight view. But what if I go to gallery view? You can still identify who's spotlit, because out of everybody in the gallery, those are the two with those little indicated icons. Not super obvious, but if you need to, you know, identify them on the fly, and it's more important to have the gallery view than it is to, you know, immediately know who is spotlit, or to at least confirm. It's like, hey, I switched to gallery view. Are they still spotlit? And you can confirm that real quickly and go, yeah, they are. And or always have that extra computer out there that is simply giving you an audience view, right? So you can always see, in fact, what the audience you're intending them to see, and go from there. All right. I'm going to say hi to Jeremy, Gary. Bill is off camera, but he's probably listening. Jeremy is here, but listening. Randy, another Jeremy, which means he must have an OSC machine here somewhere. Aaron Parecki, welcome. Aaron, have you been here before?
I have not. It's my first time. I was just trying to set things up and was pointed here from another Discord.
Very good.
Andy.
Aaron, I am a software switcher, but I do believe I know you as the ATEM video guy, are you not?
Yes.
known for some pretty killer training videos. So thanks for your contributions there.
Yeah, I would love to get this working so I can talk about this in the workflow too, but definitely having some struggles right now.
So I will say now, this is an assumption on my part, you know, you being an ATEM guy, with, you know, ZoomOSC and ZoomISO, is you may desire hardware outputs from ISO versus you know, NDI, right? And I'll say last week, and possibly, or for sure the week before, but possibly even last week, I think it was last week's OSC Test Kitchen on our YouTube channel, Andy showed some splitters, I think they're Type-C connections with 2 HDMI outputs, and so him turning on siphon, then assigning people to outputs. They go out to so he plugged in 2 Type-Cs, so ended up with 4 physical HDMI outputs, and he just assigned 1 to each one, and those can go easily directly into a switcher via HDMI cable. So if you mentioned
Yeah, you mentioned Siphon though. So that's what I'm trying right now is basically I have two HDMI outs from my laptop, and I'm trying to just go send those into the ATEM. I'm not using Siphon for that. I'm just using them as external monitors. Should I be using Siphon for that? I don't really understand the.
If you're gonna use Zoom ISO,
Mhm.
to where you leave it to Zoom ISO to pluck that individual out and then output them either via NDI or Siphon, which Siphon is software to software. If you do that, then this is the screen. When you have Zoom ISO up, just make sure you check that box to enable Siphon. And now you can now you can when you assign here's
I
the
don't think it's showing
participants in
that
the
window.
Jeff, I
oh,
think
am I
it's
not showing the right window?
Jeff, do you want to unspotlight everybody?
Yeah, getting too deep. Normally I assign somebody to do, but here we go. All right, so let me reshare this one right here. All right, so in Zoom ISO, you want to make sure to check this box for enable Siphon, and then that will start outputting. Now, you can see that in the participants, it's got everybody in our meeting here, and if I create outputs, if I create, let's say 4 outputs, and then start assigning people to them, then those will become available via Siphon to other apps and or interfaces, and as well as NDI, and you get kind of the best of both worlds.
So that's what I was trying without the Siphon step, and I was trying to choose the monitor there next to the person, sending them to different monitors out. But maybe I should try this with the Siphon route, sending the Siphon. So you need some other app to grab the Siphon feed and send it out.
Well,
one of the monitors, right?
I'm not a hardware guy, so I'll admittedly say I think I'm guessing my way through this, and might be driving Andy crazy if he's listening. On picking the display as well, but I seem to think that Siphon is a piece of that, but it may just be the display assignment as well. Are you having any luck with it? That's the question, I guess. On taking, let's say, two people assigned to 2 outputs, one to display one to display 2, for instance.
It's been pretty touchy so far. I have not had much success at the moment.
Okay. All right.
But
we'll get there. And whether you go to the YouTube channel of the Zoom Test Kitchen or ZoomOSC Test Kitchen or Zoom Test Kitchen YouTube channel, both are in there. Andy's training videos are also on that channel, or you can go directly to his site.
Yep.
I told you I was driving
a couple
crazy.
of those.
He's in the waiting room. Here he comes. He heard me, but anyways, it's those short snippets, usually 3 to 4 minute videos, super right on spot, and looks like you're going to get an answer from Andy here momentarily as well. So come on, jump on in whenever you're able to, Andy. I know you're busy as well, but anyways, we'll take that interruption when time comes available for Andy to provide some further clarity on that. And I've just thrown myself to the wolves, and I'm going to learn right along with everybody, except I can't emulate the hardware side of it, unfortunately, because I'm not the hardware guy. I'm the software NDI guy. But I do want to just kind of create a project here, and so I guess the question is rather than just be, the class instructor per se, how many of you have whether it's strictly companion, because you can do this all on screen for free, just having companion on your monitor, and or a Stream Deck ready to play around with here a bit and just set something up, whether it's your very first button or page of buttons, and or to do it again. Robert, I know this will be now, Max, do it again because you've done it once. But how many are prepared to be able to participate to a degree here? Because I don't want this to all just be me. I'm willing to share and so forth, but I'd rather just really, like I advertise, make it a workshop and talk out loud. This is I'm not going to turn off the stream, but I'm going to turn off the broadcast mode, if you will. I'm not worried about pauses and just talking out loud and everybody unmuting and chatting like we're in a classroom. So feel free to do just that. But
Andy looks a little more stern than usual. You might be in trouble.
I know. I might be in big trouble now, man. He's standing there. He was sitting there in the dark, scratching his head, going, "Jeff, you're blowing it, man. I'm going to have to join the meeting."
No, it's all good. It's good to see you. Am I coming through all right? I have no idea about my.
No, you're fine.
All right, that's good. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make it today, but we got here in the nick of time, and I haven't been following Jeff, so I'm sure you're doing a great job.
Your timing was impeccable. I literally just said, "I bet I'm driving Andy crazy with this answer," and bing, you came into the waiting room, and so
I'll take credit for it and say I have a sixth sense in one of the features of the product. Yeah.
So where we were is Aaron is here with us, and we all know Aaron is an ATEM switcher, right? And so his workflow right now that he's trying to get under wraps and so forth is naturally the physical path out of ZoomISO into ATEM. So my first guidance was referencing Siphon, and quite honestly, I don't know if that's truly a requirement. Or Aaron's point was, I thought it would just be the display option. Send it to that display, this display, and so forth. So I'll let you clarify that because, and as well as I referenced, what was the name of those? Dual HDMI Type C
the display link ones.
The display link. So if you can kind of tie that conversation together, that'd be awesome.
Sure thing. Good to see you, Aaron. I'm glad you're able to stop by. And I'll do my best to try to get you an answer. I was on the road. I was trying to okay, try this. So I'm glad we were able to get here and talk about it. So I'm going to assume ATEM Mini here, HDMI workflow for sure. Okay, great. So when you get out into hardware, there's a couple of ways to get out of ZoomISO into hardware. So one is, like Jeff was suggesting, go to Siphon and then go into Blackmagic, like the deck link. The deck link will be SDI, and then you convert the SDI back to HDMI, and then the HDMI comes in. That's what we recommend for people who are going to be using Constellation workflows or who need like 8 outputs from a single computer. You throw in a deck link quad, and then they're out and they're good to go. So that's what we recommend there. Now, in your case, though, if you're using an ATEM Mini with like the 4 outputs or something like that, you don't need more quantity. You actually can do an HDMI only workflow, and then you don't need NDI or Siphon running to do that. Now, so I know you have both Intel and M1 in your mix. Let me address maybe M1 first. So the M1 is tricky at surface level because the chip only allows a maximum. If you have a Mini, it only allows a maximum of 2 external displays to be connected. Even though it has more physical hardware to connect them out, it only allows the display port stream to go out to 2 things. One of them is the built-in HDMI port, and then another one is the bonus output. Same with the MacBook lineup. One of those displays is consumed by the physical flip-up display on the laptop, and the other one is one of the outputs that's available through the DisplayPort protocol on the Thunderbolt ports. So that seems to limit your options pretty severely. Now, the cool thing is that we just tested the latest DisplayLink driver pretty extensively on M1. And what it allows us to do is to take this $120 adapter that can give us 4 HDMI outputs from the Thunderbolt ports on the back of the M1 Mac Mini. We believe it. We had some users test it, and also seems to apply for the MacBook as well. So if you're looking to get a high quantity of HDMI outputs from an M1, I can link you to this adapter, and it's working really, really well. What's cool about DisplayLink is that it takes the task of rendering the video frames and puts it back onto the CPU, and then it actually sends that video down the USB protocol versus the DisplayPort protocol, which gives it the advantage of being able to work on M1 when those extra DisplayPort outputs aren't enabled. It's really fancy in that regard. And because the M1 has such a high-speed bridge between the GPU and the CPU, you actually don't pay a lot of a performance penalty to do that. So we're able to cook all these outputs going at the same time and not exceed a quarter of the M1's total processing usage when that was in place. So we were pretty excited about that adapter. And so for cost efficiency's sake, if you're looking at an M1 Mac Mini for $699, two of these adapters that'll total less than $250, and an A10 Mini, which I saw on sale the other day for less than $200, that's a pretty good system for getting 4 HDMI ISOs out into the hardware ecosystem. But that would be if you go the display rink route. Now, in your case, if you're going out through HDMI, and I assume so, you're back on the Mac, the Intel Mac, right? And you're having you're trying to get out into the HDMI world there. So there's a couple of things to watch out for. The big one is mismatched resolutions, which is really common to do in a MacBook because the internal display is like this specific resolution that is very different. It might be like 1440 equivalent, but it's a certain aspect ratio. So the way that we normally solve that is by setting everything to default, not default, but most space in the display scaling. That is basically going to allow all of the monitors to run at the at native scaling resolution without Mac OS getting in the middle of it, which can sometimes cause a problem. Now, one issue that we are familiar with is that if the default display is a higher resolution than the external displays in the beta copy that I sent you, it is possible that video feed will shift up or down, and it could shift so far that it actually shifts out of frame and the output is black. So that is something to watch out for. Now, that only is going to matter though if you are going out to NDI or Siphon. If you're just trying to load this out through the HDMI output, you should be able to get that image there. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about where the hitch in the workflow is and try to smooth that over for you.
Yeah, so I was getting pretty far with it. My use case right now is I have one person remote, and I'm trying to bring in both slides and their video. So I need to capture their screen share, I need to capture their video, and I want 2 hardware video feeds in my workflow. Let's call it HDMI. Technically, I'm going through a bunch of converters and splitters to go through SDI and a matrix, but that's not really relevant. The computer has 2 HDMI ports. I've got the Mac adapter and then like I forget, probably Anchor or something, or Uni HDMI Thunderbolt adapter. So I've got the laptop over there, and then I've got, so it's got its screen, 16-inch screen, and then I have, it sees 2 external monitors, and they're both actually called Blackmagic because it's going into converters, at HDMI SDI converters. And I have them up in a way where I can also see them on the screen next to the computer, so I can like drag a window over there to both monitors, and that's all working fine. So I was able to pull up the secondary output, which shows the screen share, make it full screen on one of the external monitors, and that works fine. And then I was trying to get the isolated feed of the presenter pulled up in the other external monitor. And that's where everything started to break down. Okay. Sometimes the app was not letting me choose like what output to assign that to that one external output. All the options were just grayed out. I eventually got it to work, and then it pops up the little window, and I dragged it over to the other monitor, made it full screen. It looks like it should be working, and where I left it was there was just no video showing up. It was just a gray window with the trial text.
Were you setting the output while the screen share was in progress?
Yes.
Okay. Try it in the reverse order. Try grabbing your presenter first and then starting the screen share. That's one of the things that I'm checking on in that copy that we sent you was that order of operations might have a hitch there. But
okay.
Yeah. So I know I used a cannonball to explain something that has a very simple explanation, which is probably do the reverse order. But I figured the general context would help. But
for sure.
Yeah. So the app is designed for like outputting to NDI and SDI first, but in the case where you want to go out to the HDMI outputs, it should be able to do it. So I would just turn off the NDI and the SDI and the Siphon outputs in the app, and then start the presenter's presentation after you've assigned their output to that display, and then you should have the video feed pop up and then the thing come in the middle. It's something to do with, I think, the way that the Zoom SDK handles initiating the users when a screen share happens. There's something going on in that order of operations that's weird on the Zoom side, and I need to get that note back to fix that. But that's how I would test that and see if that works. And we can try that in this meeting too. I don't know if you have your unit in here, but we can definitely test that here.
I do. Let me see if I can just pop over to the table over there, get my audio and camera moved over.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I have to use my phone to host another Zoom meeting so I can join it.
All good, all good.
Very cool. I'm trying to get a couple of Zoom ISOs out right now, and I'm getting into scaling issues again, but I'm not going to get too sidetracked there. We do have a couple more systems. So Jeremy, you have an OSC system in here now?
Well, just the client logged in. I wouldn't call it a system. It's just a Mac Mini I'm playing with. And forgive me, this is the very first Mac I've ever owned. I'm hiding it from my PCs because they feel bad. But it's just so I can play with Zoom ISO. So
very good.
It's just the base cheapo Mini.
So Zoom ISO, I'll just kind of talk out loud of what goes through my head. For you to be able to play around successfully with Zoom ISO, I don't have to give you co-host. It doesn't require that, where if you wanted to, if you want to, in fact, use OSC commands as well, let me know, because that does, in fact, require that machine to be designated a co-host. Okay, so just some clarity there, so you don't have to overextend co-hosts for ISO feeds only, but OSC
cool.
you do. So let me know if you need it.
Question for you.
Yeah.
I'm in Zoom ISO under the participants list. Is there some trick to loading the list of participants? Am I missing something?
You're in the matrix view in the participants tab?
Yeah, I'm in the Zoom ISO settings under participants.
Great. So two things there. First is so you're already in this meeting, right? Okay, great. I see you there. So
yep.
If you go to the outputs tab and you look for you set the number of outputs that you want, and then you pick somebody from the drop-down list. Do you see those names there?
I'm only seeing just a short list of names, like the first 4 or 5. And then the interesting thing is that they seem to go away. Like right now, if I try to drop down the little drop-down box and select a different user, that is blank.
Yeah. So there's a filter that you can use to help you navigate this list, and it's probably set to something other than what you want. So if you go down to the participants tab again, and you go to the top where it says subscribe to, set that to none, and then set that to all, and see if that gives you a list of people.
I've tried that several times and it hasn't given me a list yet. So if I go to none, it's blank. If I go back to all, it stays blank.
Okay. I will make a note to check on that. I typically would recommend using the outputs view. The participant matrix is there, but it has a bunch of other considerations. In the next update, it'll be more intuitive, but I would use the outputs tab for now, if that's working for you. If it's not working for you, we can check. I can get you the build 2016, which should solve that.
Yeah, it is. If I look at my participants, I'm looking at my outputs window, and I've got my 4 outputs, and I only have 5 choices on each menu. So it just seems to be the first 5 people that join the meeting: myself and Jeff and Robert and Streamer and Jeff OSC. So I'm not sure. It's probably something I've broken because I'm good at that sort of thing.
No, it's all right. Let me, if you shoot an email to info@liminalet.com, I will send you build 2016 and you can try that out, and I think that'll catch it. That's our next update. It's about to be the 1.1 update. The only thing that one doesn't have is the ISO audio, which is coming out. It's not in the developer copy, but it's in the next copy. So that'll have everything though that's going out in the 1.1 update, and that should be harder to break.
Sorry, Andy, I may be completely off ball on this one, but there are only five of us with cameras on. Is that number 5 got anything to do with it?
6 actually.
6.
Well, and to that point though, the drop-down list in Zoom ISO doesn't filter it to cameras only. And so you should actually see, like it says participants are 14. You should in fact see 14 in the drop-down list.
Well, interestingly, it's also been going away and then coming back. So it'll be blank for a minute and then it shows the first 5 and then it's blank again. So it's like I said, it's probably something I've broken. I'm good at that sort of thing.
Okay. All right. So how many of you? So Robert, I know has OSC that you can work on. Gary, do you have an OSC system in here or companion on your screen that you can work along with us?
No, I'm just going to follow. I'm just.
Okay.
It's been a long day and it's late here, and I'm just sat in the kitchen, just chilling and listening to you guys. So I just follow along.
Not a problem at all. And and Jeremy, you're ISO only, no OSC.
I do have an OSC instance running on the Mac Mini where I have ISO running, but to be perfectly honest with you, I've been watching videos and have no idea how to use it.
That could be part of it. That could be part of it.
This issue was I will close it, but that was happening before OSC was open. That's why I opened OSC. Let me kill OSC.
Yeah, everything that you can do in ZoomOSC, you can do in ZoomISO. So there shouldn't. Usually, there's not necessarily a reason to run them both. But I know that they have some things that could be conflicting there if they're both side by side. Now you say it's, it could be running ahead of that and could not be the issue, but could make it upset.
No worries, I killed it.
All good. And yeah, I can get you that. Let me find the links to that.
Let me do the classic Windows thing and reboot the Mac since it's been running for about a week. And
that could also upset things. And I'll pull up those builds and get those over to you.
So I'm gonna share my my screen here real quickly, which is vMix, and point out that, let me just shrink a few inputs. All right, so these 4 black ones here on the bottom row are the NDI inputs. Now, right now, for some reason, I can see the video on my Mac, but I'm not getting it over here on my PC, but that I'm not worried about at the moment anyways. But I do want to point out that for those of you who weren't here last week, that we're looking at audio meters bouncing next to each one of these. I have two outputs on ZoomISO assigned, and one is a Andy feed, one is a Jeff feed. And these NDI inputs, it's new. I just wanted to point it out. It's fresh, right? And so these did not previously have an audio channel coming in with the NDI feeds, and now they do. Now both of those audio channels are identical. They're muxed, and so it's the Zoom meetings audio for now. Although I think early stage is they're working on ISO audio feeds as well to deliver sometime in the future here. So so the audio is coming in as well, which is nice, and then it's just a matter of, if I did a 2-up and put output 1 and output 2 next to each other, I would want to manage those 2 audio channels and make sure that one of them is off at that, right? And or have a separate audio channel altogether and just always keep that one on and then turn off the individual ones, depending on what you're up against on multi-ups and so forth. So all right, so you tell me, you guide me. We can build some buttons that are based on gallery position. We can do it based on target ID. We can move on to Robert's situation where we said, hey, you can build a target list of just the known speakers in a text file and load those into, and then the page that's would normally display all the target IDs. We'll only display those particular target IDs. And so it keeps your buttons, you know, minimized to just the speakers. You tell me which way you want to go, and anybody's free to respond on, hey, let's make this our project right now. Don't be shy.
Can I ask a quick question here?
Yeah.
As to my main reason for being here today, other than to observe somewhat.
Yep.
Is it possible to create start record, pause, resume record buttons?
No, unless you have, unless you're using the short, I don't know if there's shortcuts to start that inside of the Zoom shortcut menu. We don't have OSC commands for those yet.
There is, but they don't seem to work with ZoomOSC.
Interesting. You might want to, let's see if, because the ZoomOSC and the Zoom client have separate banks of settings, might be worth double checking that they're bound for the ZoomOSC client and enabled as global shortcuts inside of the ZoomOSC client.
Okay. So make them global.
Yeah, make them global and then use like Vocero or something like that to execute the hotkey.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try that one. Thanks.
Okay. Thoughts on project? Come on.
Do the gallery, do the gallery views for the populate the gallery view. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate that. All right. So now we've got a target, and so next to gallery view, let's think about. So the first thing is we want to populate the label of the button with the name of the person who's in that gallery position. That's like, that'll be the instant result, is auto populate the name of the person in that position. And then my next question is, so we have kind of at least a two-step target, and do what? What do we want the button to do? And choices could be, you can just select it, like Robert and Max talked about. They selected the button first, and then they would hit spotlight or pin, or you could mute and unmute and so forth. Or we could tie the action directly to the button that says, when I press this button, I'm going to toggle the spotlight, or toggle and unmute. And when we untoggle it, it'll unspotlight and it will remute them. You can tie it directly to it, or you can make it a selection. The main difference is when you make it a selection, you can spotlight multiple people at the same time. But if you don't need to do that, then you can toggle spotlight, for instance, directly to the button itself. So that page could be all about spotlighting and muting and unmuting or whatnot. So go ahead and give me a second step as well, and then we'll start walking through it. Actionable button or selectable button?
I can tell you one that we use often is pinning to the second display from indices based on the gallery view in the first display.
Yeah.
I personally have use for pin to the main display.
Okay.
That's one of my goals.
All right. So let's build away. So I will let me share my OSC desktop. Go over to companion. And here's a page that I've got currently that is based on gallery position already. I've got some here. These are based on target IDs. I don't know what we're calling. Yeah, this is just extended numbers for target IDs. And then gallery position, and then this is the selection with. And so I'll provide a hint first, if you will. And we'll see if we can zoom in. And so I'm going to highlight the button first. And if this were to be blank, you start with that $ left paren, and that'll pop up a whole list of choices, like a ton of them. And then as you type, it will get closer and closer to your choice. So I'll leave that up on screen. Is that large enough for everybody to see?
I'd also say that all of these are available in the preset as well. So you could, if you,
that's true.
You could just drag this over without having to reconstruct it from scratch if you didn't want to. But it is, so the syntax is there though in the preset.
Yeah. So here, let me real quickly copy that. I'll pop it into chat for reference.
But Andy, just to note, it's much more fulfilling to manually type in those commands.
Oh, I completely agree.
And then QA them. You know, I get great joy out of that.
Yeah. So if you start, I mean, it's a good get you started method for sure. In the sense that you have a completely blank button. Let me delete this one as well. Completely blank button, and you say, where do you begin? And you can go to presets, to the liminal ZoomOSC, and there's a ton. I mean, Andy and team have done a great job.
This is about half of the ones that'll be in the next update.
Yeah, so it'll get larger and larger. It's awesome.
A ton, yeah.
So anything dealing with gallery audio, so it's audio management based on gallery position, list index audio, gallery video, and so forth. So start with and then if you wanted to do the selection instead, then you can start with a gallery selection instead, knowing that you're going to follow it with a execution button of spotlighting or pinning or whatnot. So we wanted gallery. Let's go with gallery spotlight. So I clicked on that. What I think is super cool is that even though these are presets, they're literally populated dynamically according to the current meeting that we're in, which is, I just think is fantastic. And so this is, you'll see if you drag this over to that first button, let me let Cone in. And then you go reference. Well, what did it just do for us? It added all the dynamic variable code in there, and the preset that we used was a spotlight preset based on gallery position. So it puts in the name dynamically, follows it. This \n is a coding character for a new line. So it forces a line break between the name of the person and the word spotlight. That's what the slant N is. And so you can do without that, and companion might make it look okay, but if you leave it to companion and it doesn't look okay and you want to force a line break, just type a /n anywhere you'd like there, and and it will force a hard break for you. And then so you've got the dynamically text there on the label. The spotlight is the action that was automatically brought in as well. So it brought that in. Toggle spotlight for user, so it'll spotlight them on, spotlight them off. The user is based on the who, if you will, is based on the gallery position, and I want to base it on gallery position, and then it hand typed 0,0 for the very first position, and that is on a companion in a stream deck, if you will, or inside companion for a stream deck. You got your column and your rows, right? And so you've got that, or in the gallery, in this reference, you have the very first position is 0 indexed, and so it's row 1, column 1, which is 0 index, so it's 0, 0, and then 0, 1, and 0, 2. So we're set there. So you could copy and paste all that, and or in the presets it has has all the buttons there. So you can go back to Gallery Spotlight, and that's going to be the next position. And so I'm just going to drag these all on. Andy promises me one day we'll be able to drag these, do one drag, and it'll fully populate the stream deck there. Actually, he didn't promise me that, but I asked. 6, 7, so 7 across.
But if it's fulfilling to type it out, surely it's fulfilling to drag each button.
I know.
The satisfaction.
No, that wasn't enough savings. That's right. It wasn't enough yet.
Right.
So
got to make you do something. Like
I know. No, and you know where that idea came from is when Jonathan did a demo of Universe Control, and he drug one thing and it went woof, and it drew all the buttons. I'm like, you got it.
Yeah, Universe is insane. Like that is so easy to do there. Yeah,
so amazing. Make sure I got these.
You got it right, Jeff.
What's that?
You got it right.
Yeah. I was checking 1.5 to 1.6, so we're good there. Thank you. And then okay.
Now
I got to put my glasses on so I can read that. Holy moly! There we go. That's the last one I put on there. So then it's this one. That one. That's 2, 3.
The second last now from that row.
This one.
Second to last.
Second to last.
Yeah.
This one?
Yep.
Wow. Got a good eye. All right. So you see they're already populating on my physical stream deck. If I change to page 15, they are there. It looks the same as what you're looking at on screen. And you don't have to have a physical stream deck to make this work. It has nothing to do with the magic of it all, right? And if you haven't, don't have a physical stream deck, that's fine. You can do it here on the design screen, if you will. Is just if you want to click on a button, if you just click on it, it just puts it in edit mode, if you will. But if you shift click on it, it will actually spotlight and unspotlight. And so you want to, if you want to simulate it, you can do that. You can also go to the emulators and bring up the emulator here on screen. And now you can actually click on them, and you don't have to shift click to get them to react and work and so forth. All right. And there's, if I remember correctly, yeah, there's the emulator, which was that one. There's a one called Web Buttons, which is kind of cool as well. And what's super cool is you can just scroll through the pages of them, and so sometimes people consider that much faster access. And then you have the mobile buttons emulator. So if you prefer, and you can make it full screen. And when you're full screen and you scroll, that would be really useful if you have like an iPad, which is then a touchable device and scrollable. And all you need to do to be able to execute that from that is just type that URL. With the exception of, you have to use not the loopback address, the 127, that won't work from 2 different devices. But if you use the IP address of the computer itself, or if you go to companion and change this to the actual address and then relaunch. Now when I let me get some people admitted. Now when I launch the emulators, it will it should, I had the wrong one here. There we go. Now it's doing it by IP. So now when I launch the emulator, and if that's the one, then if I just type in that IP address from my iPad, for instance, then it will give me that emulator or the Web Buttons emulator and so forth. Okay, I think we're working on page 15. There we go.
Why are some of those buttons red?
So let me scroll out, and I'm going to highlight the button, and we're going to go down here to the feedback area. And it basically says, hey, give it a red background. If let's say the spotlight status, gallery position 1-1, if the property spotlight status. So if we were to compare these two, the value is, if the spotlight status is off, then make it white on red. Let's make sure his is the same. Yeah, if it's off, make it white on red. I don't see, is that backwards? I don't see any spotlights at all right now. Be able to share. Let's compare this to a green one. The green one says gallery position 1-0. Spotlight status on, white on green. And then gallery position 1-0, spotlight status off, white on red. This one, white on green for on. I don't know. I'm going to say if it's on, make it green. If it's off. So it's not getting a proper.
Jeff, I believe it's not working right because you have these double question marks. I think this is showing some variable that is not working properly. So maybe you have to refresh or something. Maybe it doesn't have the right values.
Well, it's the preset. So point made, gallery position, and it's the preset that we drug the buttons on from is referencing a property that on this build that I'm running does not exist. And so we'd have to get some clarity on that. So here, let me share this screen again so you can see what I'm seeing. So it's either up and coming or it used to be and now it's not a property, but the gallery position, they're looking for a status of spotlight, and there's not one in the drop down list called spotlight status. There's video status, there's online status, audio, active speaker, raised hands, and so forth, but there is no spotlight status. But then the same thing, as far as it was Kuhn before, right? That was red. And now it's not red, but it's the same. It's the same same attempted value. So I'm not sure what it was hung up on the status. It may have just been that I popped down the list and brought it back up and so forth, and it made it kind of renegotiate. Hey, that's a non-existing property, and so it defaulted to the green. But the green that it's defaulting to is not this one, which would be the bright green. It's defaulting to the buttons white on dark green, because there is no actual feedback from this property that's not available right now. So that would be video on, video on and off is all. So I think that's that hang up on that spotlight status. All right, so can we, let me let's stop share. There are no spotlights right now. And if I, on page 15, if I spotlight, let's say Gary. Is Gary's camera on? I know Robert's is. Okay. That's Robert Cohn. Cohn is spotlighted. Jeremy is spotlighted. Jeff is spotlighted. And Robert is spotlighted as well. That was pressing 4 buttons. And if I just one at a time press those, each one of those again, I'll should remove so boom. That's not toggling Kuhn though properly. Robert. Okay, so Robert came and went. You know, it's interesting. Now my statuses are working though too. That's really, I'll have to talk to him. I'm on a beta build right now, so I'll have to let him know that it's not, doesn't have that property in companion, but the statuses of my buttons, I have dark green, white on dark green. I have white on bright green when you're spotlit now, and I have white on red when you're not spotlit. And so I was like, okay, I'll take Jeremy off. I'll take myself off, and I'll try to take Kuhn off, and that did. Okay. All right. Interesting, because if I share my screen again on the OSC computer, you'll see what I'm talking about. those button statuses are the green ones are the untouched ones who I didn't spotlight, but if I spotlight Bill, Bill is spotlit and the status updated as far as now it's bright green. And Jeremy do the same thing. And so they are in fact being reactive, although the not happy with the missing property. So although it's doing it. So interesting find. All right. I'll report that accordingly. Now, question is, you know, do we want to toggle the spotlights, or maybe we can take a regular button here, create an action for spotlight, and that it defaults to spotlight user. So spotlight user is a replace spotlight. So if you have a 3-up and you push a button that has the action spotlight user, it'll replace the 3-up or the 2-up or 4-up with the one that you just add the spotlight to. The second one, add to spotlight user, is adding one, appending it to. So you go from a 1-up to a 2-up to a 3-up. Unspotlight user, pretty straightforward. We'll unspotlight that. And then, and that's an individual to unspotlight. And or you can toggle spotlight for a user, turn it on, push it again, turn it off, and or you can clear the spotlight. And I'll do clear spotlight, and I'll say me, which is on my computer, and here I'll put in clear spots. And now if I've got 2 spotlights up there, Bill and Jeremy. If I click on clear spots, it'll clear them all, and should be good to go there. Let me stop the share so I can see it better. And Bill remains on screen, on my screen anyways, but there are no spotlights at this point. It wiped both of them out as far as the formal spotlight goes. And keeping in mind, that doesn't have to be a separate button necessarily. That could be, you know, if you were to build a button, let's go here, and let's say this button, we're going to, we'll call it scene number 1. And what we want to happen there is to spotlight, and we will we'll add to spotlight. You can do it a number of different ways, either by target index, gallery index, and so forth, or just tell it exactly who in the meeting do you want to spotlight. And so here I'll tell it on this button to spotlight Bill, and that's all I have to do. If I were to say spotlight user by specify user name, then I'd have to type Bill's name, but I don't want to type Bill's name. He's in the meeting. I want to go ahead and just reference Bill, and therefore I don't have to type an identifier at that point. I want to add another action and spotlight somebody else. And so we'll add to, so it's a multi-spotlight, and I'll do myself on that one. And then finally, we'll do a 3-up. Who else's camera's still on? Robert's still on. All right, so now we have one button. I'm gonna kill the share because it always gets in the screen real estate way. And I'll push this one button, and should end up with our 3-up. Who did I designate that doesn't have the camera on? Myself and Bill. I designated Robert, but you didn't come up. as spotlighted. Okay, it's real. So I'll add the spotlight manually with a mouse, save the day, right? Get it done. But the question is why didn't it? And so what I would recommend doing there when you're trying to do action after action after action, sometimes those can get executed so quick, Zoom can't keep up with them. The SDK can't keep up with the actions. And so what you need to do there is I will do this first. I'll check mark relative delays. So the delay is not, let's say 50 milliseconds and just put 50, 50, 50. It's 50, then 50, then 50. So it's a true space between each action if you tell it relative delays. And so at that point, you just have to kind of trial and error this. I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but I'm going to go with 100 milliseconds and just start there, which is kind of long. I just go. If it works solidly here, then then I would shorten those up till how did that get to 97? Oh, weird. Wow, do I have somebody remoting into my computer? That is friggin' bizarre. I'll sit here and stare at it now.
You did it with a scroll, actually.
Huh?
You did it with a scroll action. If you click the 100, then scroll up or down, you change the value.
Yeah, but I don't. I must have just rested on my mouse just wrong or something. The trackpad, kind of weird. All right. So there's that. So let me go to share again. I don't have a button for it there, so I'll go here and remove all the spotlights. And now I'll press scene 1 again, and we'll see what we end up with. We'll end up with Bill and still no Robert. All right. So I'm not going to share again, but I'm going to tell you that before Robert, I'm going to increase this delay in companion, remove the spotlights, re-execute scene number 1. Now we're missing Bill. And so I still end up with this issue. I'm not quite certain why. I've dealt with having to, plug in delays for quite a while. I was hoping that this version that I'm running fix that, because Andy says it has, but maybe it's not compiled into this one quite yet.
Now, Jeff, I raised my hand. Does that, I know on Windows, sometimes that causes issues. I'm not sure on a Mac.
Well, so do this. Let me clear this. Yeah, but you were spotlighting before, and it was Robert who wasn't, right? So to go ahead and unraise your hand, which you have. Let me redo this triple up.
And the other comment I'm going to have is when you were spotlighting. So I basically have a 2-monitor setup. So I saw your slides in one, but I always saw the gallery view in the second screen, even when you were saying you were spotlighting. I don't know if I'm the only one that had that behavior, though.
Slide? What do you mean by slides?
Well, when you were sharing your screen, I would see your screen share, your share.
Yeah, well, it's frustrating. Okay. Oh, user error, baby. My Bill, I did as an add to spotlight user. Jeff, add to spotlight user. Robert, spotlight user instead of add to spotlight user. That'll do it. All right. So now I'm gonna execute And we have a 3 up. All right. So that was a bad on my part. I did a add, and then a replace basically. So I was messing.
So I'm just going to ask, is everyone else seeing a 3 up? Because I still get the full gallery view.
Are you in gallery view or are you in speaker view?
I'm in, I'm using a 2 monitor setup.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm in gallery view, but the other window would be a speaker view. I mean, let me uncheck it.
I believe you only get multiple spotlights when you have speaker view on.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. That's the same setup we have over here with 2 monitors.
Yeah.
So I have to stay in speaker view.
Correct.
Yeah. All right, so I have no spotlights. I'm going to hit one button, scene number 1, and I've shortened the delays now to 100 milliseconds each, and that drew it up there a lot faster, naturally. I'm going to remove them again just to see that again. Pretty quick. I'm going to drop it down. I'm going to run this down to 50 milliseconds. All right, clear the spotlights. Scene 1. Not too awful bad. And then the question is, what if we were to build a scene 2, you know? And I've done this through, you know, a show. It was very predictable, you know, kind of what multi spotlights I wanted from scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. Then my dilemma at one point was, do I do I make my first action in companion clear spots and then spotlight, 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 or do I hit the button clear spots and then scene 2 and clear spots and then scene 3? And you know, I ended up in that particular gig. I did the clear spots button so that the scenes were kind of independently usable, if you will, even out of order. And so, you know, you always build progressively and go from scene 1 to scene 2, but now scene 2, you know, are you going to build scene 2 to have dependencies on where scene 1 left it, right? And or do you want the freedom to just call a scene and you may have to manually clear it first and so forth? So that's all up to, you know, your show and requirements and so forth. But you know, getting the multi actions up there. And so now, you know, when we're spotlighting, we also naturally, let me share again. All right, so continuing to build on this, if we spotlight Bill, we should probably make sure that we unmute Bill as well, right? And so we will add another action. It's not audio. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, ZoomOSC audio. And we can mute, you know, very explicitly mute and unmute the audio. And so we can unmute the audio for Bill and then do the same thing for Robert. And then finally, it was myself. Okay. So now
Jeff, you have to change to audio on, not video on.
Oops, thank you. Unmute and unmute First one I got. Okay. There we go. So let's set this up. I'm gonna manually remove all the spotlights. If Robert is already muted, Bill is muted. I'm gonna stay unmuted to see if I stay unmuted, and I'm gonna execute scene 1.
Yeah, I think we're unmuted now.
I'm unmuted.
And I remained unmuted. So, so then when we clear this, now, if we're doing toggles, you can do, keep in mind with the toggle, it's toggling from its current state. So if Bill was unmuted, he'll toggle while he's spotlit muted, right? So I would commonly recommend, being pretty explicit with your ons and your offs, so that you get exactly what you expect to get. Toggling is a little bit of guesswork. Visually, toggling, works, pretty decent in the sense of, spotlight them on, spotlight them off. It's quite, it's visual. They're either there or they're not. But when it comes to tiny little icons, such as mute icons and so forth, I would recommend being pretty explicit about it. Any thoughts, questions, things you're thinking about going, what if, or how to, or whatnot, just kind of building on this piece right now?
Just from a flow perspective, do you automate the unmuting of folks, or is that, because when you spotlight someone, it does pop up and say, if you want to speak, unmute?
It does. Yeah. If well, and so preceding that, when I start a meeting, to host a meeting, my meeting is always set up and scheduled with the check mark request to allow host to unmute you. Commonly, I try to give prep to those speakers that says, when you get prompted, please answer yes. Then we can manage your microphones for those just in case moments. Like most of the time, I try not to be the primary microphone manager for speakers, but sometimes it just works better that way, especially if I've got time to get everything all programmed in and so forth. But I always, kind of show them how to manage, tell them about the spacebar shortcut just in case, things like that. But yeah, commonly I plug it in, because if they answer yes, allow the host to unmute you, they won't get that prompt. And it just mutes and unmutes. It's only if they answered no, don't allow the host to unmute me, will they get prompted every time. But there's no better timed indicator of, hey, you're on screen, man, and pop up the dialogue, right? Then I don't have to send a separate request to unmute, like with my mouse or whatnot, it just happens because it's programmed into the Stream Deck. If they're unmuted already, no prompt. If they answered yes, let the host, no prompt. Only if there's a real problem will it actually prompt them. So
thanks. That's
about it.
That's a good description. So on the spotlight command, when I implemented it, and it could be my error, but what I noticed is I had to spotlight one person first, and then I could execute add to spotlights. Does that make sense?
No, because you shouldn't have to do that.
The way I implemented it is I used a selection key. So basically I would select 3 folks and then click add spot, and it wouldn't work consistently. If I spotlighted one person and then I could select, 3 or 4 folks and add spot, then it worked just fine. It was strange behavior, and so I just figured a workaround.
I remember that Benjamin Antepit said something about this, that spotlighting is like you first have to spotlight one person. It takes a little bit longer, and then you have to spotlight the other ones. and then they appear immediately. So there is something special about spotlighting between the first and the other persons.
Well,
but I don't
there's
remember exactly.
certainly the speed piece. So if you tear it all down with like clear spots, and then make it start spotlighting again, that first one is slower, but it shouldn't have to be. But let's go test it out, because I think what you're saying. So well, let me share this again. That is what I was just building, or what we just built there was the first one. Bill is Bill being the very first one is an add to Spotlight. Jeff is an add to Spotlight, and Robert is an add to Spotlight. All three of them are add to Spotlights. Now they're three separate actions, but the very first one is working, and it's an add to Spotlight, not a Spotlight user. And I think that was part of what you were talking about, Robert or Bill, right? Is having to do a Spotlight user once, and then all the others could be add.
Well, so basically I had 16 buttons set up, so I'd select them and then just use one button, add to Spotlight. So there's no way to put a delay on there that I'm aware of. Because it's just one command, add to Spotlight.
So this page is the selection, right? So Robert, if I look at gallery view, make sure we're matched. Looks like Bill is first. Bill, Jeff, Robert, Kuhn, and Jeremy. Bill, Jeff, Robert, Kuhn, and Jeremy. All right, so we know we got a match there as far as the current gallery layout. And before I went there, that wasn't what these buttons said, by the way. I came over here and I put it in gallery view, and that in fact helped Companion and ZoomOSC get updated to the proper names, to the proper position. So realize on the OSC machine, being in gallery view is pretty important, especially if your Stream Deck or your buttons seem out of whack. That would be why, if it's based on gallery position. So these buttons are for selection. So Bill, it says the message is toggle selection based on gallery position, and so these are all toggle selections, which means click and select, click and select, click and select, then select an action, right? And let's see if I can make this bigger. Here we go. And so the Spotlight selection is down here. It says add to Spotlight user. That's what's there. It's not spotlighting the selection. It's actually add to Spotlight user, right, Bill? And then what's it spotlighting? It's spotlighting the current selection, which is either one of those buttons or two of those buttons or three of those buttons. It will take in that array of data, if you will, and spotlight them, not individuals, but the current selection. And so if I were to select, if I shift clicked Bill, he's selected and he's green because he is selected. Jeff and Robert, so those three are selected. And then finally I click on Spotlight and I'll stop the share, and we've got our triple spotlight there. Is that not the behavior you're saying you're getting, or has any of this visually upped a little bit?
So what would happen is it wouldn't execute it correctly. And the way I fixed it is I had to spotlight one user using the Spotlight command, and then I could make my selection of multiple users and use the add to Spotlight. But if I did everyone using an add to Spotlight without one person being spotlighted, then it failed.
Mac or PC?
PC.
I don't exactly know why, but
I mean, the
have bounced-
workaround worked well, but
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
you know,
Nah, but having to program workarounds, is sometimes more time and trouble.
yeah. What was
And
described is if there has to be a delay on the first one, it's possible, and I didn't test this, is that I could just add to Spotlight one person, then select a group, and then hit it again. That would be
and are
save me
you
a button.
running a beta version of OSC or the released version?
Why, of course I'm running a beta version.
Yeah. No, I mean, the beta actually should give you better results, quite
Yeah.
honestly, because I know they've worked on this. Because I wanted to throw my PC through the window, because all I was doing was hammering down delays between all my actions and this and that, and it was really, really, really frustrating. Where Max, every time, like Benjamin or Andy would jump on and go, "Oh yeah, this is how you do it," and boom, it would just work. It's like, you know what, you're pissing me off now, right? Because the doctor's in the room. But oftentimes it was the difference between a Mac and a PC, and there was some reliability. The SDK for the Mac was more reliable on these multi spotlights than a PC, because a PC was too fast, and it just wouldn't catch them all. And so, but he said he was on with me and a couple others really late one night a couple months ago, and he had kind of found the magic on fixing that, because the feedback he was getting from the Zoom SDK that the spotlight had completed was not true. It wasn't even like an accurate answer, and so he finally figured out a way to get a real status, to get it truly sequenced properly in the whole bit, and so it couldn't stomp on itself, and so that's why I say, if you're running a beta build, you should, I would guess, have a better result. And I'm running a beta build right now as well. I think the latest, but it's on a Mac, and so now we have a platform difference. So my question to Andy would be, is that improved sequence, one, accuracy and speed better also on the PC platform like it is on the Mac, and that would be my walk away question for sure, because it sure should work.
Okay.
Bill?
Yes.
Bill, do you remember which type of targets you used for your Stream Deck layout? So
give me just a moment. Let me pull the window up, because I just was looking at it.
Bye, Kuhn.
So I was using the list index.
Okay.
All right. Let me before we go anyplace else, let me share. And
so I'm on beta build 4.0.5. Does that sound correct?
Let me see what I've got here. That should be correct.
Because what I'll do is I'll test.
I'll
test again.
You're on that. So I've got a Zoom ISO 1.1 2021 build 2021, and let's see if it also lists the OSC version in here. I don't think it lists both. Yeah, this doesn't. This only shows the Zoom ISO build, which has OSC in it. So
Well, that's okay. I think I think I'll test again, and I have a Mac on order, so
Okay.
you guys broke me down.
Break your heart. Have you worked on Macs? I mean, is it a platform?
Yeah, I've got Macs at home. I just because I'm vMix centric.
Yeah.
Whenever I buy powerful PCs, I want to be able to, you know, throw vMix on it as for NDI and just as another machine.
Yeah, I've got both. I've got 2 Macs here and 2 PCs here. I mean, they're all brothers and sisters these days. I didn't really ever think it would be that way, but actually, works well. Seems to do all right. I was going to let's see. It's going to take this page and just spend a little bit of time here on getting, working with like target IDs, especially the custom lists. So let's say we've got 3 videos on right now. Right now, you can see, well, this is based on target ID. If I go to one based on gallery position, that's actually correct already. But if it weren't, we could, execute an update and know that that would all, be updated properly. The data in memory actually has more than just this, because these are the videos that are on where there's actually, there's still 10 participants as far as machines that are logged in, right? And this one is a bit more. It hasn't gotten rid of the missing folks, and I think I might be able to get rid of those. Let me see if this works under the connections for ZoomOSC. If I disable and re-enable that, that may update that appropriately, and looks like it did. And now those leftover names, like Andy, who had been left, they're now gone. And there's, you can do that with a button as well. There is a command for it. It's an action of internal enable or disable instance, and tell it which instance to enable and disable. And so I did a press action, or no, it's not enabled. And then when I lift that button up, I force a delay just in case I lifted it too fast. And then I enable it, yes. And so it basically resets that instance without having to go to the tab and so forth. So that can get rid of lingering data of people who were in the meeting and now aren't. And then if we keep going through some of these, so if I execute the update, that's the data, this data is all in memory. If I want that to go out to a file, and bring up a finder, and it ends up by default in documents, and that's under your OSC settings as well. But if I keep that available, I'll pull it to the upper screen for a moment is all. And then I execute, I save. Let's see, need to go see what path this is saving to, bear with me. Documents performance. Not seeing it there. Why not? There we go. That's not I clicked it well enough the first time. So once I did that, it created this file called performanceconfig.txt, which is you can see this is the Zoom ISO dialog. If you have that, ZoomOSC has the same thing, but under the OSC settings, it says participant target file. And you can tell it to show it in Finder, but this is where it is that path right there. So if it's different, just follow the path that it describes and or give it a new one. And that's why it ends up where it ends up. So with that, if I open this file, you'll see that there's our list of folks that are in this meeting, right? And if I have, I'll pull that off screen for a second. This this page on my Stream Deck, this is all based on target ID, right? Target ID 0, target ID 1, and so forth, right? And it's populating the names accordingly. So with that, the question is does it match this list? Jeff OSC's first, Whitgren is second, Streamer, Robert, Bill, Jeremy, Randy, Robert, and Andre. Looks like a match. And so what if I'd never have to spotlight Jeff OSC. I would spotlight, let's say, Jeff Whitgren, not Streamer. Yes, Robert. Yes, Bill. Yes, Jeremy. And we'll say, Randy, Robert, and Andre are going to be attendees only. And so now I've got this custom target list. I save this. Now it's rewritten to the file. Now in OSC, I can load. That's what load is for. Load that. And it should then update. I don't think I want to do a update. Bear with me a second here. I'll reset that instance. That's the whole. I load this now. It's not reacting the way I thought it would. It should just load the ones I had in the text file, target list. Yeah. I have to go remind myself of that particular process. So if I go here to, let's say, preset, liminal, Still seeing that it's acting like it's not loading the file, which is a little frustrating. Yeah, first, it's still, the text file is still there. Jeff, Robert, Bill, and Jeremy. That's all that's there. List as an output. Load should load. Save outputs it to a file. Append adds more new people to an existing list in memory. And update takes a full inventory. I don't know. Oh well, I tried. That's the file that you want to manipulate, and I'll have to come back better refreshed and prepared for the use of the custom list, because I'm pretty sure I'm not that far off there. I'm gonna, while we're in the meeting, restart is all. All right, that might be all I've got for now, but back to you guys if there's other things you want to give a shot to, test, try. Robert, Max, Bill.
Yes. I would have a question to Robert.
Yeah.
Yes, I would have a question to Robert, not related to OSC, but related to Zoom and translations, translations, because I will have an upcoming event with some international speakers, and we have German-English translation. And I wanted to know if you have some good tips for me, maybe for what microphones to provide for the transcribers. How is it? What is the word? Translators.
And interpreters for the people.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. So do you have some good tips for me to regard in advance and to set up? So I think I have to have 2 extra machines, one for each interpreter, and each one gets an extra microphone and an extra audio feed. And what other things do I have to regard?
Well, the 2 things. Interpreters usually work in pairs. So if you have 2 interpreters doing the same language combination, one will speak for 15 minutes, then they'll swap, and the next will speak for 15 minutes. And this is just to do with how quickly the interpreters get tired. So you need to have them, if they're sitting next to, are you planning on having them together in the same room, Andre?
I'm not sure. I will have a meeting on Monday, and then I know how they are placed, but I think it's like a professional site. So they will have extra booths, and yes, it's 2 of them in each booth, I think.
You only need 2 interpreters if you're doing English-German, German-English.
You only need 2. So 1 booth with 2 people. 1
booth with 2 people. Because when the interpreters are in Zoom as interpreters, they have a button to choose if they're interpreting into English or into German. Yeah?
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they can play. One person can play both roles, right? And and so I could sit between German and English, and I just have to click the button that says I'm translating English to German right now. And when the listener responds, I can hear it, and because we're all on the same channel, or I'm listening all on the same channel. But then I before I translate it from German to English, I have to click that button, because that switches the audio channel, right? So it switches my output to English, and the other switches my output to German. And so my audible has to, it doesn't take 2 people. I mean, they might choose to do it that way, and they can, but 1 person can in fact sit in the middle and be an interpreter for both parties by managing that switch. And the other thing is those 2 people can be in the same booth, or they can be 2 separate Zoom call-in people as well. They independently be logged in. I can, hey, Robert, correct me any place I go out of line, but we can walk through this real quick. I'll share my Zoom desktop. and the language interpretation is enabled on my meetings, for demo purposes for sure. And so you define who, right? And so this becomes an active list. So if Robert was going to be the interpreter, I can just start typing his name and say, Robert, you're going to be a designated interpreter from English to whatever language you want to add, and you can hand type those languages in the backend portal, Zoom portal, and so you could create one that says tech team back channel. It doesn't work really great because its piping is weird, but you can hand type the language or purpose of that channel or whatever the case is. So Robert, do you have a second language? You speak a second language?
Yes, I do, but I think it would be better to actually make Andre the interpreter so that he can see what the interpreters will actually see.
Yeah, and I can multi-assign as well. And so, but no, not a bad idea. We can make him the first one. And so we'll say, Andre, you're the interpreter. Let's just say from English to, pick a language
German.
here, Andre.
I take German. Yes.
Okay. All right. So you're the first one.
Obviously.
If you have, and you'll commonly have that pair, we'll say, Bill is the second one, and he's also English to German. And now these pairs, Robert, you can add to this, I'm sure. These pairs have to figure out with you how they're going to manage the switch or the handoff, right, at those timed marks. If they're in the same room, not a big deal. If they're not in the same room, then they might want to chat, use private chat, and tell them, okay, hey, next pause, because they can feel it. They both do it professionally and so forth. They, the next pause or gap or whatever, and so they have to figure out that handoff is all, and so you can make this happen. So that's the, you can swap these too, the direction as well. And the one on the left side, I think it's important for me to bring out, and I didn't realize this for a while, but the one on the left side is the originating language, and the reason I say that is I got this request late one night. Somebody called from a protection. Hey, do you know how we can provide English to Spanish but not make the audience click on Spanish when they join the meeting? They have to pick up, they have to pick the language and select the Spanish channel. Everybody joins the meeting on the original language, the originating language, and they just wanted it to be automated. Well, there's no way to have somebody join the Spanish channel automatically. But what I did was I had a vMix feed. vMix was feeding the broadcast, if you will, the program. And so what I did was I made the vMix operator the interpreter, and which sounds really weird, but I made them the interpreter, and I can't remember the exact direction. I seem to think I did it backwards, what felt backwards. Yeah, because the meeting defaults to English, and so I made them a Spanish to English interpreter, and they sent their program there. Well, what it is that forced the interpreters to be the two people in the meeting that had to pick the channel to interpret on, but everybody else who entered the meeting defaulted to hearing what the interpreter said. So instead of it being a default English channel, it then became a default Spanish channel, because I made the vMix operator and the interpreters the defined interpreters in a backwards direction. And so then the default language of the program was what the interpreters were saying. You no longer had to listen to the interpreters on the interpretation channel, if you will. So it got rid of that extra step that the entire audience would have had to do manually, and only the interpreters and the vMix operator had to do it once. So that makes sense. Try it sometime, Robert. If you have a single language and you want it to be the default language of the interpreters, it works quite cool. So anyways, I'll do this. I'll almost click on start. So if when I click on start, Andre and Bill, we in this room will no longer be able to hear you unless we click on interpretation and select the German channel. Then we will hear you, because you've become the interpreters. My audio routing will naturally go into your ears because you need to hear me and then translate. But for us to hear you, we have to change our listening channel to German. You guys,
Yes, let's give it a try.
Yeah, so Bill and Andre, you should be able to both hear us for a moment and talk to each other. But we would have to change, and we'll come join you in a second as well.
No, that's the thing, Andre. And the interpreters will never hear each other. That's the key.
Oh, really?
You'll both hear English.
This is the really tricky thing about Zoom. That's why I asked you, Andre, where your interpreters physically will be, because if they're in the same room, they'll hear each other through the air, not through Zoom. If, however, they are in separate locations, you need to use a second app for the interpreters to be able to hear each other or communicate with each other.
Yeah,
now, we actually use Slack because it's good, and it's for corporate clients. They don't have an issue with the confidentiality and the security of Slack. But the interpreters need to be able to see each other. So they'll have their cameras switched on Slack and switched off on Zoom. So that when they come to the handover, there's usually a sign that they will give, I'm ready for sign, no, 5 seconds. Okay, my turn. And they'll move on with that and do the handover.
And if they're in the
This
same
is a very
room,
good advice. Thank you.
Although in the same room, it can be simpler on the handoff, they have to manage their mute buttons, because otherwise you'll have 2 mics feeding the interpretation, right? And
so speaking about mics, how would you set it up? Because usually you have this interpretation stations with XLR microphones, and then you have a computer with a sound card, XLR in, USB. Do you have a separate little mixer to mute the one and the other microphone, or how do you do the intermuting between these 2 microphones?
Okay, well, the two options that you can have, if you have what we call an interpreter's console, then you would have the XLR type microphones with headphones for each of the interpreters, and then the language channel choice. And then you take...
Yes, I think this will be the case.
Okay,
but how do I connect this to the Zoom meeting computer that is in the room, I think, because it's their client.
So the 2 things that you need to do, you need to get in interpretation language, it's called the floor. In other words, the language that's coming off the main session from Zoom. You need that to put that into the console, the interpretation console, so that the interpreters can hear what's coming to them, what they need to interpret. Okay.
So a special mix minus.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is that from each of their from one computer that is not one of the computers that they will be using, you need to become a client or attendee on that meeting, select a language channel, for example, German, and feed it back and feed that interpreter from the interpreter console from the German channel. So let me say that again. You've got the console here, you've got the output of the audio in German, and you need to feed that into a laptop, which is set up in Zoom with the interpreter function like Jeff just did, and select the German channel on that. So you have like a German interpreter on Zoom, which is actually being
it's the German input for the interpreter into Zoom.
Into Zoom, correct.
I see.
And you need a second laptop to do it the other way around into English. So you need 2 laptops.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess I don't understand the second computer requirement. The second, so I would confuse your recommendation for a second computer for English to simply flipping the switch in Zoom, and that switches you to English.
Yeah, but the interpreters aren't going to be sitting in Zoom. You'd have to have an operator who is sitting on the first laptop, listening to the language combination, then switching when he hears the language change. And
you're assuming
Could
the speaking interpreters are not going to be at the Zoom console?
No.
Is that what you're assuming, Robert?
That's what Andre said, that they've got an interpretation console in a booth where they do the switching within the interpretation.
Yeah, but I assumed that there would be a Zoom client, one laptop for them, where they switch like English or German.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a second situation, Andre, because that means that they don't have the standard hardware console for interpretation. They have a laptop.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Now, if they have a laptop, you need to have them each have a laptop each, yeah, with headsets, and I'd strongly recommend USB headsets with a bar mic on them, and don't have an open mic, because when they move their heads, you'll have changes in sound, etc. The level of sound.
Yes.
And if they're sitting next to each other, have those mics go opposite direction. Like this one faces this way on that guy, and that one that way on that guy. If they're sitting next to each other, just so that there is that at least some attempt of some separation if they're in the same room too.
The other thing is, if they have bar mics, interpreters usually Google or use a file on their laptops to look at the glossary of words to make sure that they're all using the same vocabulary. So if they have a bar mic, then you won't get the noise of the key clicks, etc. on the keyboards. Yeah. So
the base situation would be two laptops, each interpreter with its own headset microphone, and each one is going live in the language he wants to speak in. And the one mutes himself, the other one unmutes himself.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, now, so let's go. Tell me, Robert, if this just breaks all the rules. So if you got two humans in the same room, they each have a headset with a boom mic on. They go into a small mixer board, and that mixer board is USB'd into that single laptop. Then they could just manage mute on channel A, channel B, channel A, channel B, right? I mean, they could have two headsets, one on each person, one small mixer with mute buttons on each channel, USB into a single laptop, and then switch the direct. If they were doing two-way interpretation, that's a very valid system as well, right? If they were to do that.
Yeah, that will work as long as you really have a good mixer that's keeping the channels completely cut off from each other. Because what I've found is that if you don't do that properly, you've got the sound going to the headphones, leaking into the mics, and then you have an issue.
Yeah.
So would you have a recommendation for the best situation they could be in? So when I have this site location, this site going, I can say, okay, I want to have it like this. Then it's the best base for a good Zoom call event.
Yeah, because let me just see if I've understood the scene correctly. You've got a conference there with several people sitting in the conference, or is everyone offsite?
It's on-site and off-site, on-site and online.
Yeah,
So
that's what I thought. So if it's off-site and on-site, what you have is you're going to have a hybrid meeting in terms of interpretation, because you will have a classical interpretation system on-site where each of the people at the conference desk will have their own mic, their own set of headsets, and will be able to choose the language they want to listen to. And that system will be connected to the booths. So the interpreters will be actually working on that physical system. Now, what you
Yes,
need
like in a classical situation, like
correct.
a classic. Yeah, okay. Okay.
And for the remote users now, you need to set up those 2 laptops that I talked about, one connected to the English channel, one connected to the German channel, set up as interpreters, so that the sound goes through on the interpretation channel connected to that laptop. One will be English and one will be German selection.
Okay. So each one gets its own mix minus, and then it's done.
Correct.
No, so the mix minus is done by Zoom itself, no?
It's done by Zoom itself.
Yeah, if you're plugged
Yes.
into, if the source is, yeah, if my audio source is plugged, coming from and being returned into Zoom, Zoom handles that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
with the interpretation in Zoom, Andre, what will happen is that the floor language will always go through to both channels. However, the channel that the interpreter starts speaking in, the Zoom volume will go, the floor language will go down, and the interpreter language will be much higher. So you'll hear the interpreter with the original speaker in the background. There is an option to switch that off, but I don't recommend it, and don't even tell people that they have that option, because then everyone starts complaining, I can't hear what they're saying when the person on the floor changes languages.
Okay, thanks.
Robert, thank you. That was wonderful. Being an American, yes. Everyone speaks English, so I haven't actually had to implement it, but that's really helpful. Thanks.
You're welcome. This is what we mainly do, and usually they're 2 to 3 language combinations, but we've done up to 13 language combinations. And I can tell you the adrenaline runs at high constantly.
And so your main way is to have a separate machine for each language and a standard booth situation with a console that you feed into each laptop or machine.
For the hybrid type situations.
Yeah.
If it's a pure Zoom meeting, then we can have the interpreters wherever they want to be. We don't have to bring them in to booths. They can be remotely. And that's when my advice would be to test them before, because each and every interpreter comes with his own laptop, his own headset, his own environment, and the sound quality then is really, really dependent on what the conditions that the interpreter is working in.
Some prefer a transcript if the program is scripted well enough to where they can produce a transcript. They'll ask for a transcript sometimes as well, so that they just have a visual reference and spelling, and so forth as well. I think we did. We knew we were going to be broadcasting some pre-records, and so we submitted the pre-records up to, I don't remember if it was Otter or somebody else, but Rez maybe, and submitted it, and we just did the automated transcript, which comes back very quickly. It's just it's not human translated. And so it's close, but not perfect. And you can hand them that document too. So I don't know, how many of your speaker or translators prefer to have or ask for a transcript, Robert?
The transcript is required to get all of the proper nouns, names, dates, numbers, so that they get those right. Hardly any of them reads through the transcript, because it's very difficult, because if someone has speaker notes, for example, and is reading a presentation from his speaker notes, very often we have to go online and say, listen, can you slow down, please? Because you can read without thinking about what you're reading much faster than you can talk in a natural way.
Yeah.
And interpreters, just remember what they're doing. They're listening, interpreting, and then speaking. Those are three things they have to do at the same time.
Yeah. I'm blown away when I hear them.
It's a really tough job.
Unbelievable. So, hey, I'm going to hit start, and Bill, give it 10 seconds maybe, and then share your screen, Bill. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to hit start, and then in about 10 seconds, share your screen so we can all see the interpreter's console, which is really similar to the same with the exception of that button. It's a slider button. It toggles left and right, I believe. And we'll get that
So
out
this
there
will
too.
appear when you hit start, right? Because in the moment I don't
Yep.
see anything.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll see it as interpreters momentarily, and then anybody else, which is just Robert and myself. Oh, there's a couple of others here, Randy, Robert, and Jeremy. But anybody who wants to hear what Bill and Andre, the interpreters, are saying, will have to manually change our interpretation channel to German. All right, so here we go.
Okay, herzlich willkommen, Englisch, Deutsch.
Yeah, I can hear you, Andre, and you should be able to hear me now. Bill, I don't think you've accepted to be an interpreter, or you're on the German channel itself. This is another tricky thing, Andre. What you're seeing here is you can't hear Bill,
now.
but I can hear both Bill and you speaking. And that's why, that's the challenge in Zoom with the present setup. And you won't have this issue with your hybrid.
Yeah, the share is coming across as a black screen.
But what we usually do is, if we have interpreters working like this, we have a list of them, we pair them up, and we've got to monitor that no two interpreters on the same channel have their mics active at the same time.
I can see your gallery now.
Okay, because what's happening now is that if Bill is an interpreter and you're an interpreter and you're both on the German channel, I, as a member of the audience, can hear you and Bill speak at the same time.
Did you share the app or your desktop, Bill?
No. And so what we usually do is, when we're monitoring these events, we've actually got to monitor the microphone status. And if I see that Bill has an open mic and you have an open mic, I will mute Bill so that only one person speaks. Because then with the briefing to the interpreters, what we do is we say, one of you has to choose to be the lead interpreter. And that means if two of you start speaking at the same time, I'm going to switch the other one's mic off. And if you see the mic going off, that means your handover hasn't been successful. You're both speaking at the same time. But like I said, we usually have a Slack channel for the interpreters. So we get on and we communicate over there that you've done the wrong thing. You need to, the changeover didn't work. Yeah. I think Bill is on the English channel because we can't hear him speak at all. So, and I can see his lips.
Yeah.
Sorry, just a minute, Bill, because Andre can't hear you and he's speaking to me at the same time as you are. So it's
Here, let's go to questions, but let me kill the translation first.
I think that'll be easier. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Now we are all back on the same channel.
Well, first, apologies for the screen share, because my screen went totally blank.
Yeah, and it went into a remote support mode versus a screen share
but anyway,
mode.
so we'll just skip that thing. But I was curious, if we have these remote interpreters, they're on Slack so they can see one another and coordinate. And that would mean you as a producer could also join that if you needed to correct things. Are they simultaneously connected to Zoom on each machine so they can select the interpreter channel?
Yeah, you see, the beauty about Slack is that the interpreters have to use the Zoom app. You can't be an interpreter in the browser mode. Yeah? So they're in the Zoom app and Slack goes in through the browser. So we can share the resources in terms of listening, and we can share the resources in terms of video, but we can't share the mic. which is actually exactly what we want, because we don't want anything between the interpreters going out onto the conference floor.
So that's why you had the hand signals and when they're going to take it over, so you can see one another, and their mic is going out Zoom.
So you say they use Slack on the same computer? I thought you would say they.
We use Slack.
I thought they use it on a. Yeah.
Slack is one of the only programs that I've found that you don't get on a Windows, that is, where you don't get the conflict in the resources. I don't know why, but I know that it works, and that's what we use.
Okay.
And Slack is really good for another reason. It's corporate accepted, yeah. So you can't use WhatsApp or something on a mobile phone, because WhatsApp is just totally unsafe. Yeah, it's unsecure, so it's not good for a corporate environment. Sometimes what we do is we start up a second Zoom meeting, and the interpreters will be on a second Zoom meeting on their mobile phones and just be looking at each other, and then they can have a second earpiece from the second meeting and listen to each other speak if they need to understand each other's, understand the vocabulary that the partner is using. So there's lots of tricks, and just like the ZoomKitchen is for workarounds and for things that aren't implemented in Zoom, we do a lot on the interpreting part.
Well, and keep in mind, like if I was interpreter A and you were interpreter B, and the meeting just started and I started interpreting for the first 15 minutes, you could tune into the dialect that I'm using by simply switching that switch, so that you could hear me in the Zoom meeting. You could actually hear what I'm translating, right? And because when I make you an interpreter, what I'm hearing is the program by default. Let's just say English. My partner on the other call, for instance, is interpreting it into German. But if I flip the switch, I'll hear German. It's just when I need to do my job, I need to flip it back to going from English to German.
No, Jeff, that's not correct, because the switch only affects the mic track. It won't.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So I, as an interpreter, no matter who I'm speaking to, that doesn't make sense to me, because how can I know I can sit in the middle as an interpreter between two languages? I have to be able to hear the other language, which is switching my speaker as well, my headphone.
But that's
how do they hear the German speaker if they're an English to German interpreter? Maybe I'm under the wrong impression. I was always under the impression I could be an interpreter in the middle and switch between, so that I can hear German, speak English, hear English, speak German.
No. What you're referring to is a function in interpretation known as relay. In other words, something that comes from one of the interpreted channels to the interpreter, and that function doesn't exist in Zoom. I've spent hours and hours speaking with Zoom. We have a request for a new function already in the pipeline, with hundreds of others, because one of the problems we have in Zoom is that if the host does mute all in a meeting, he also mutes the interpreters. And then the interpreters get completely stuck because they can't unmute themselves, for example. Yeah.
Can I test this? Let me test this. So I'm going to assign myself as an English to Spanish interpreter, which means when I start this, I'm going to hear the English channel, and when I speak, the Spanish folks will hear me. So Bill, you be Spanish, and Robert, you be English. Okay, so Robert, speak to me, and I'll just repeat it, repeating this in Spanish, and then I'll say it in English to you, Bill, and then then Bill, you say something, but let us verbally know, hey, I'm speaking in Spanish. I gotta try that switch. I just want to experience this this spot that I love being corrected and knowing that I've been giving out bad advice up to this point. But I'm always a trust and verify as well. So if you don't mind, bear with me here. So Bill, you need to, when I start this, you need to change your language channel to Spanish,
Okay.
so that you'll be the ones hearing me. Okay, here we go.
Okay, and I'm going to choose the English channel. So
So
I'm
I've
English.
selected Spanish as my interpretation
And-
language. So
Just-
no hable español.
Yes, I'm in the Spanish channel now, and I heard you.
So I
No,
hear.
Robert can't hear you.
Yes,
So I
can
just
hear you,
switched to
Jeff, on the
English.
channel.
I have gone to English channel because
I'm
two
in
of
the
us were on the Spanish channel.
Oh. So
Yes, I
I'm
can
in the
hear you.
English. No, I'm in the Spanish channel.
I hear you loud. Yeah, I'm going to Spanish.
Zero. No,
Now
it should be zero.
So now I hear Robert, but when Jeff was talking before, I didn't hear him, and I'm on the Spanish channel. I do not hear.
Yeah, you should be
Now-
able to hear me.
I hear you.
Yeah, you should be able to hear.
But I don't hear Jeff.
No, Jeff, Bill didn't hear you.
And on my control panel, I see Spanish selected.
Okay, now I can see Jeff speaking, but
Yes,
I can't
I
hear
hear
him.
you now. And I'm assuming when I see Spanish on my bottom, that means I'm translating to Spanish.
No, you're
Or I'm
not
monitoring
encrypted.
Spanish.
You're just listening. You're an attendee and you've selected to listen in Spanish.
Okay. Okay. Then it's acting correctly.
Yes, now I can hear you, Jeff.
So Robert, this is the
And I hear
switch that
you.
I had before. So the switch only selects which language I hear, not the language I speak.
It depends.
Did you say
because
this?
As an audience member, it's what you're listening to. As an interpreter,
No, I meant, yes, I meant the interpreter switch. You made me an interpreter, and there was the switch. And this is the language I hear, not the language I speak.
No, the other way around.
As an interpreter, it's the other way around. Yeah. So this was my experience there, Robert. I had a switch that said English and Spanish. I could click on English and you could hear me on English and I could hear you. Bill could not hear me. I clicked on Spanish. Now Bill was listening to the Spanish channel. Then Bill could hear me and I could hear Bill. I could hear both of you the entire time. So the ability for me to be the person in the middle, I could have easily listened to English and clicked on the Spanish channel to interpret it to the Spanish audience. And then while he replies, I could click on the English and listen to his Spanish and translate that back to you on the English channel.
That is exactly how it works.
But I went in to test that because I thought you said I would not be able to hear the other side as the interpreter.
No, what I meant is that if there was a second interpreter interpreting into English or to Spanish, you wouldn't hear that second interpreter.
Yeah, that I get.
Yeah, because you are an interpreter.
So in the beginning situation, when Bill and I were interpreters, I wasn't able to hear him. And this was surprising for me because I thought we would be something like in an extra room, could talk to each other, but it's exactly the other way around. We're separated from ourselves, but everybody else can hear us.
How is that though? Like if I'm a second interpreter and Robert, you're interpreting, let's say, to English. And in order for me to, as an interpreter, I hear both sides. As an individual interpreter, I heard both sides. I heard Bill talking on Spanish and I heard you talking on English. Why wouldn't I? Are you telling me that it mix minuses the other interpreter out of my headphones? So it mix minuses it
Yes.
out of the other interpreters, even if they're on different locations, computers and everything. Because you'd think, oh, I can listen to my friend interpreting to English if I just listen to the English side, but you're saying no, that gets mixed minused out. All right.
That's exactly it, and that's
but as an
challenge.
individual translator, I can easily translate both directions.
Yeah.
And but if I expect English to hear me translate Spanish, I have to click on English, and vice versa. If I expect Spanish to hear my Spanish translation from English, I have to click on Spanish.
Yeah.
And then my speaking gets routed appropriately, and because I can hear you both at the same time. All right, good.
So Robert,
yeah.
Do you have a recommendation for a mute button, so to say? Do the normal interpreter click on the space bar and it's done, or do you have some special microphone headsets with mute buttons, or what is the preferred way?
The best way to do it is to do the muting through Zoom, because then if the interpreter starts speaking and the microphone's muted, it gets the message on the screen that your microphone's muted. Yeah? If you mute on a microphone, in other words, a hard mute, the interpreter will go on blabbering away, thinking that his sound is going through, and he gets no feedback from Zoom that Zoom's not receiving anything.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, because I just bought a new, I can't lift it high enough because of the cables, but I just bought a new box. It's a 1 in, 2 out, or 2 in, 1 out box, right? And I can switch between one input and the other, and it can go either direction. But you're right. I mean, that might work. I don't know whether the buttons are quiet enough. Some buttons cause noise and so forth as well, but there is no indicator. Especially when if you get spotlighted and you're muted, Zoom's smart enough to say, "Hey, you've been spotlighted. Do you want to unmute?" And it knows that you need audio during that moment in most cases. So
I read something about a mute switch, a little USB switch that you can plug into your laptop and it's done. But I don't know where I read it and I can't find it anymore. Now I wondered if something like this is something that Robert usually uses or to interpret. Very good.
So we have for interpreting, we use these Sennheiser headsets, and they actually are really cool because they have this part over here with a mute, and you can adjust the volume, but they're also, and these are USB at this end, but if you don't, for any reason, you have to change something, we can just plug it directly in through the jack or go through the USB connection. But the quality through the USB is always far superior, because the audio cards in these laptops, especially if you go for Lenovo, are just tragic. Lenovo is like a disaster. So we don't recommend them.
I haven't used these, but this is what I think you were mentioning is this is, it's a
exactly. Thank you.
USB
Thank you,
Zoom
Jeff.
meeting mute button, start stop video as well. So it's all it does: video mute, audio mute, and it's USB driven. Pretty cool. I mean, it looks cool, but I'd have to. And it looks like a micro USB connection.
Yeah, because there are so many situations where people are like a second too late or maybe half a second too late, and for the flow of a show, it's always nice to have something special. And on a Mac, you can't, or standard, it's not to use the space bar to mute and unmute, but it's, I don't know, Shift Command A or something like this.
Oh.
But you need to keep in mind that interpreters that have worked in a booth intuitively know that they need to change channels and mute their microphones and unmute their microphones on Zoom. They're doing exactly the same thing that they did in the booth. So that's not where the issues are, really. Yeah.
So they are like adopted to this scenario quite well.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're not new to it. I ran into, like, my nightmare translation day was one, they didn't show up for the first session at all. Then they showed up late for the second one, and she couldn't get connected to the meeting. And so we're trying to troubleshoot that, only to find out that she was just a reseller of these, translation services from a company out of New York, who New York would take an order for a translator. Well, she took an order, sold it, placed the order to New York. New York, it just goes out on a ticket, almost like a mobile app where you place a food order at a fast food place and it ends up printing on their printer in the restaurant. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like that, completely automated. So the New York place would take in an order for an interpreter, automatically spin up a client somewhere that joins the meeting, automatically, like alerts a translator. They jump on to their console that connects them to that Zoom client, and away they go. Only to find out that their automated everything had no ability to connect to a webinar instead of a meeting. And there was absolutely nothing that could be done. I'm just like, unbelievable. So it was just a nightmare.
So I'm curious, how's connecting to a webinar different than connecting to a meeting?
Got me. I mean, whatever
Okay.
automated scripting or programming that they did just failed.
Wild.
Or maybe it was a registration, deal where if registration was required, that's often the hang up, But yeah, it was really bizarre. And the gal even, like, she tried at one point, but like, I knew she was there because I had her connect directly, and and I knew she was there, and she wouldn't talk, and she wouldn't talk, and she wouldn't talk. I'm like chatting with her, like, translate, please. Like,
Mhm.
oh, she was just struggling. Then she talked about script. She was the one we ran that thing up through the transcript maker, and still, and then she was a no-show for the next 2 days. We had 4 days worth of webinars, 2 to 4 webinars a day. There's big money in it, and she just walked away, man. I'm just like, wow, unbelievable.
Well, next time that happens, just call me. We've got people who can just jump onto those bandwagons, because unfortunately this does happen, Jeff. It's not something that just is unrealistic or specific to you in that situation.
So Robert, can you share your company name and where you're located?
Sure.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, go ahead and do it.
I will write in the chat just now, but I'm located in Poland, so I'm Andrei's neighbor, just next door.
Okay.
And we have in our pool of interpreters, because we're an online agency, over 350 interpreters worldwide, with the majority of language combinations, and we have trained all of these interpreters to work on Zoom. So that's the beauty about them, is that when they come in and I work with them, we're speaking the same language. You're not having to teach them the alphabet in order for them to speak to you. So that's really, really useful.
We just had a client bring in their own interpreters, and we had to make a presentation to make them do it properly.
I mean, when we do interpretation training for interpreters, it's usually 3 sessions of 1.5 hours each. So we teach them what to do, then we do practice sessions, and then we do a breakout just to talk about what we heard. We record it, play it back to them so they can experience what it looks like from the other side. And it's a long process to make that understanding. And the thing about good interpretation is what Jeff just was talking about just now, is if I'm interpreting with you, Bill, and we're interpreting into the same language, at the same conference, then I need to listen to you because I need to sync my vocabulary with yours so that the audience hears the same words being used when the speakers say something. Yeah? So we have workarounds for those as well, whereby the interpreters actually are interpreters and they log into the same meeting the second time just to be able to listen to the booth partner who happens to be on the other side of the world.
Yeah, well, and there's interpreters with specialties that are legal. They're very familiar with legal and court documents and language there, and medical as well, right? And because some of the medical words are difficult, right? And they're experienced in medical as well. So it's not just a language to language, but a language and a vertical, you know, some verticals really deserve their own specialty. So, yeah.
Yes, spot on.
Stuff.
Right.
Do you just do interpretation or do you also work transcription?
We have people who do transcription, but it's not something that's popular. We work mainly in the corporate world, and so there are meetings where the discussions going backwards and forwards, and then we have a second segment that we serve, which are the you call them webinars, but they're all streamed. So we always have a small amount of people in the meeting itself, and everything's being streamed out. And that's what Max here does, because Max can stream out up to 6 channels from one PC and just RTMP stream it into somewhere. And what we use is Vimeo. We go into Vimeo with one language channel, and then Vimeo allows you to restream those to wherever you want multiple times. So,
this is very interesting.
This is fascinating. So
yes.
I didn't catch your company name.
Yeah, I'll just type it into the
Thank you.
Please. So
I mean,
so
I'd assume you. I'm sorry, Andre.
No, please, no, go forward. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I assume that I'm USA based. I work in corporate environment. If I have clients that need translation, or rather interpretation, you'd be all happy to work with me.
I would love to work with you, Bill.
Okay, because you clearly know what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a question to this multilingual thing, RTMPing somewhere. I will have to do YouTube streams, and I think it will be 2 languages, German and English. And as I understand it, YouTube removed the possibility to have 2 audio channels. So I would have to do 2 separate streams. Is this the thing, or is there something else?
Correct. No, that's correct.
Okay.
You can do 2 separate streams, or we've taken, you know, restream.io. That's one of the services that allows you to restream to RTMP to multiple locations.
We do have a Vimeo Pro account, and I distribute from there.
Okay, we use Vimeo, and that's the best way to do it. In other words, we set up a live stream into Vimeo, and then from Vimeo we can RTMP.
Yeah, right.
I think it's 10 destinations at the same time, and then we have one of those live sessions for each language channel. So we've actually got for our use, we have 4 Vimeo Pro licenses bought, so that we can do up to 12 language channels streamed.
So do you have a solution for a backup stream? Because in Vimeo, you have to have an enterprise account to do backup streams. Do you use Restream, or have you other solutions?
You know, I've spent a lot of time with Vimeo talking about this, and what they've advised me to do is to not use a backup stream, but to set up the live stream as a reusable stream, so that if the RTMP connection goes down, you can restart it.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah? And what is it? YouTube doesn't give you that option, but Vimeo does. so that when you define the live event, you define it as a recurring event. And so that as soon as if it drops, I think Vimeo has it set for about 30 seconds. If it loses the connection for 30 seconds, for less than 30 seconds, it'll reconnect, but more than 30 seconds, then you have to manually reconnect it. But if you have it as a recurring meeting, then you don't have to change the any of the URLs or any of the keys. You just restart it and it goes.
Yeah, the viewers
so you have
watching your live stream will seamlessly join your live stream.
really.
Yeah.
So you have the browser open with the Vimeo control page, and then you only click restart, and that's it. Wow,
I mean,
very good advice.
For a viewer, it goes blank for those seconds you're reconnecting, but yeah, it's seamless for the viewer.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Is the issue usually on the server side? I'm just curious because I use vMix, and you can push out 2 streams. So I pre-program the second one. I'll run the first. If I see an error, rather than kind of restart that encoder, that FFmpeg encoder, I just click stream 2, which fires it right back up. And I found that that's pretty quick.
Okay. Well, we use vMix as well, and you've got it up to 6.
I got it up to 3 from vMix, and I imported those streams with different audio via OBS instances to 6. And I believe when I open Task Manager, I can go even higher, but it's not tested. We didn't have any reconnecting or dropping out connection issues yet.
Yeah, but what we've done, Bill, is I know we're getting slightly off topic, Jeff.
Yeah.
Please forgive us, but what we've done is
Very interesting.
We have redundant internet because we found that our streams were dropping because of breaks in the public internet. So we actually have I don't know what you call it. It's a router here that allows us to feed 2 different internet feeds into it. And then that supports our LAN totally redundantly. And ever since we've done that, we don't have issues with dropping streams.
I'm just thinking out loud.
Sorry, what software or hardware do you use for bonding it?
This is the man who does it, vMix.
Okay. vMix does it, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. vMix allows us to stream 3 channels at the same time.
Natively.
But I think the question is bonding the internet access. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, right. Yes.
Oh,
Because
okay.
you said you have 2 internet connections for backup failover, or is it for speed?
No, this is a Cisco router, and the Cisco router has 2 WAN ports on it.
I believe it cannot aggregate those connections, but it checks for the
Fastest route.
fastest route.
Mhm.
I see.
But I've played with this. I mean, during sessions, we just unplugged one internet connection, plugged it back in, unplugged the other one, and it's cool. It's stable.
What I was wondering is, okay, let's say you've arranged for the. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking through my own workflow and thinking that's stupid. Let's say the video is coming from me. I was thinking an SRT feed from the for the languages, and then I'd encode it here and shoot it out. But I have to diagram this out to if that even makes sense.
You know something? Let me just show you something small. When every time I have one of these with interpretation, it ends up with a drawing like this. It just I don't have the mental capacity to remember everything in one place.
You're a man after my heart.
and the thing with Max, when we're looking at the same piece of paper, so we know that we are seeing the same output, input.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Okay.
interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeff, if you'd like to do a separate session on just interpreting, we could do that. Maybe not in the ZoomOSC kitchen, but in the Zoom kitchen.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
there's a
we've focused in the past on the tool, but not nearly to the depth and experience that you have. So yeah, we can coordinate the timing and make sure you're there as well. And I was bringing up, so a week from tomorrow, I have members of the Zoom events team committed to being in the Zoom test kitchen. And
Nice.
so they provided me a preview file as well. But I wanted to share this with you because just to see if you guys ever used this, and it's the Zoom transcription, right? And so it can create the transcripts and time mark them as well. So so if can you hear that?
Not really.
No.
I can't hear it. I can
Nope.
see the transcript and I can see Joey Meehan talking.
But it's nice in the sense that you can jump, you know. So if you did a search for demo and scroll down, they're all highlighted. And let's say right here, I go, oh, that's the one I wanted, and you just click on it and moves the playhead and the whole bit. So it's pretty slick.
That is super cool. That is super cool. And one of the questions that came up on Facebook page recently is someone was looking to get that transcript, take it out, translated it into a different language, and push the translation back onto the Zoom screen.
Yeah. Yeah, automated. I don't know. I mean, you know, one, it's not a perfect transcript, so you know, I mean, you certainly can. I mean, the transcript, I get a transcript of every meeting I host, and so you can go in and you can edit the transcript, get it cleaned up, right? You know, whether it's spellings or whatnot. The timestamps are there. So as long as you're not like trimming or cropping video and screwing up the timeline, I don't see why not, you know, in that sense. That you go, you know, upload it to a translator or run the text through a translator. I don't know what the translator would do with the timestamps though. You know what I'm saying? I as far as formatting them and what it would give you back, you know, like if I went, let me open my browser, go to my Zoom account real quick and grab one of these transcript files.
Just keep in mind that this is being streamed, Jeff.
Yeah. No, I'm not sharing at this point for sure. Thank you though. If I go to the recordings, go to last week's ZoomOSC, I've got chat, audio. Oh, I thought I had transcripts going automatically. Maybe not. Let me go back to some older versions. Let's see. Oh, maybe not. I thought I did. I'll have to go look at my recording settings. Shared audio chat. Yeah. But not transcripts. Well, I was fully anticipating getting a transcript. Audio chat, shared gallery. Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, I'll have to go double check that. Yeah, it's not checked. Oh, I thought it was. Okay. It is now. Now I'll start saving transcripts. I just wanted to see the format of it, you know. It's just a timestamp tab with all the text or what, but I think that would be the risk is if the translating engine would actually, you know, keep the timestamps formatted in a sense that you could send it back up to Zoom, but I don't know if it would ever repair itself. You know what I'm saying? Because part of the magic of that clickable transcript area is Zoom's managing, that tie together, I believe, as well, their player. So anyways, yeah, there's lots of requests, that's for sure. So, well, very good. Well, it's been good. I don't mind getting, it's not off topic. It's off the OSC topic, but it's just our meeting now. There's just a couple of us left, right? So
Didn't mean to hijack your session, but this is pretty good.
We're good. No, it was a good discussion. Good. If we're gonna do it when there's not a lot of people wanting that other topic, if you will. But we did it 2 hours in too.
Yeah.
So, well, good to get together. Hopefully,
Sorry, Jeff, just one more question before you finish up. When did you say you're going to have the Zoom events guys in? Because I didn't get the date.
That's a week from tomorrow, and so I'm gonna early next week. We're looking to get do a little bit of a marketing recording, a couple of headshots, and really get it out there as far as letting everybody know. But it's Zoom Test Kitchen a week from tomorrow, Friday, at 3 o'clock Eastern, and they'll do a much. I don't know if you were in there when Sam came in as well, but kind of a formal presentation initially, but then we'll open it up to Q&A and dig in a bit as well. So that'll be good. A lot of us have been waiting to really get a good idea of what it is and whether we can and should leverage it and the whole bit. So I looked at a earlier, about an hour before the kitchen opened up. I was on a Zoom with somebody out of Australia and looking at a platform that, well, I'll just say it's the platform that manages the registrations, meeting management, meeting movement. A Zoom meeting can't exceed like 1,000 people, but the events they manage have had 140,000 people, and so it is a kind of registration event management system that lies above as many meetings as it takes to host the entire audience, no matter how large they are. And so you broadcast from here into all the rooms, and the people come from up here into which room? They load balance it, and they go, you go here, you go here, you go here, you go here. It's like throwing people into the sections of the football stadium, if you will, right? And so how many sections do we need to host, the total? It's unbelievable how incredibly cool it was. And you don't have to, whether you have, a couple thousand or 200,000, you sign up and you pay for, the usage and so forth. But it's all done within their enterprise account. You don't have to provide your Zoom accounts or anything. It's a 1080 enterprise account, and it's meetings. It's not webinar. So it's super impressive. Still being, probably, trying to get it to maybe version 2 or something like that, but it's successfully supported some very, very, very large events, and has, I don't know, probably 300 people using it already, or companies. So I think more to come on that, but yeah, it's quite impressive what's going on, what's getting developed, what's being used, and so forth. So good stuff. Well, very good. Thanks for sharing, Robert.
Jeff, just one more on that Zoom event, if I can just ask you a question.
Yeah.
There are people that I would work with that I'd like to bring into that Zoom Test Kitchen in the Friday in the week. Would you have an issue with that? Because I don't know if what the registration would be like going through that.
Yeah, I really don't filter, who comes and goes. I mean, I have to boot people out every once in a while just because they're just, I had, I think the last one I booted was somebody came in on their phone and they're looking down at their phone and walking in this dark room and like they had no place, I mean, they just found, I mean, I advertise it publicly, and so when we let people in the waiting room, I follow them, and I just watch where they land, make sure if their camera comes on, it's, somebody we know or they look, they look like they're here for Zoom. But yeah, no, you're always welcome to bring whoever. I mean, they have to register, I mean, it requires registration in the meeting is all, but outside of that, yeah, usually the more the merrier. If they can benefit from the content, that's what it's all about.
And I would like to invite people from overseas. Would you mind if you switched on the interpretation module and I provided the interpreters for that, and we could do, French is one language that we'd like to do on that.
Yeah. No, if you wanted to provide language services, all the better. I mean, if you knew you were bringing in 3 different countries or that Spanish is big, German's big, whatever languages are kind of the most important, and we can add that to the marketing, these languages will be provided. Hey, I mean, that's a winner for the Zoom Test Kitchen, is to bring in potentially more audience because they can connect in their native language. That would be great.
Okay, so I will
Really good
send
idea.
you an email. Yeah, and German as well, Andre.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I will confirm this with the interpreters and shoot you off an email latest by Monday. Is that okay?
Yeah. Just get in touch with me and have them register if you know that they're going to do it, and so have them register so that I can get them assigned in the system. Ideally before I start the meeting, because then I've got a lot of different things on my mind. But yeah, be happy to. It'd be fantastic and make my day to be able to offer that level of service and I shared with these guys. I mean, I don't say this out loud. I don't know that I've ever said it out loud on the Zoom Test Kitchen, but out of the almost 1,000 members of the Zoom Test Kitchen, they come from 72 different countries. As far as the registrations, yeah, super impressive. So I just ran that report the other day out of Zoom. It was like, wow, holy mackerel. So, anyways, it's spread out all over. So, anyways, yeah, let me know. I'd love it, and I'll make you a co-host so that you can help manage that and I think a co-host is not you can't. Can you not even manage it once it's activated?
No.
Yeah,
Only
that was one of
host
those.
can.
Yeah,
it's one of those.
Okay.
Not to use a bad word.
What did you mean? What you can't do?
You have to be the host to manage the interpreter function on Zoom. A co-host cannot do that.
I see.
And that's okay. If you end up with multiple interpreters and so forth, I'll give you hosts so you can get that all kicked off and smooth, and we don't have to, chatter back and forth. And I'll make me co-host, and I'll switch, the meeting while it's going. And yeah, I have no issue with that. And because once you get it set up, you can pass host back if I had to, and it'll stay intact. So yeah, no, that'd be great.
Sounds good.
Great. Yeah, get the word out there, guys, and let people know. And I'm gonna advertise accordingly. I got a meeting with them on Monday, so I may have to just advertise on my own before I get a recording and some headshots. But we'll make it happen. I think when Sam came on from Zoom, we had about 60 people. but now we're streaming, you know, I mean, it's not big numbers, but you know, between YouTube now, which is new to us, and Facebook, you know, we usually see, you know, 10 to 15 viewers there, and so it's a bigger, easier place to tune in, and the reviews are, the replays are where the numbers really are, is when people go back and replay and so forth. Those are usually, you know, I don't know, 4 to 6x the number of attendees, you know, so it's good. Happy to build the archive of information and education that we can all benefit from. So it is, it's good. I like what I do. Hope you guys like it as well. Love having you here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's roll out with our favorite slides and
Thanks
music,
again.
and I'll
Okay.
might see you tomorrow if you're in the Zoom Test Kitchen.
Thanks
Bye now.
very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.